Flash, bam, alakazam out of another amazing Fallout episode. Man, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another review of the Fallout episode. This time it's the radio. And with me today, I've got pretty much everybody's here today, actually. It's pretty great. And
Ooh.
we're going to go with our first question. What is your favorite named weapon in the Fallout universe? And we're going to start with the banana. Let
I
us
like
know.
the deliverer from Fallout 4 from unfortunately, the railroad.
Unfortunately, the railroad.
I'm getting ready to do their faction again. I'm sorry. And it's just like, these guys are
It's
so
not good.
stupid. It hurts.
Yeah, they're just I don't know, they don't deliver. Huh?
Hey.
The best part is literally the gun.
Yep.
Like, even later when you get their armor, it's kinda dumb.
Well, see, and I was gonna disagree with you because I was gonna say once you get the ballistic weave and the fact that you can put that on
True.
almost anything,
The ballistic weave's good.
kinda makes up for it. Other than that, no. But like that's what I was gonna give them props for is the ballistic weave.
The ballistic weave and the deliverer are probably the best parts, but then I was thinking of the armor where it's like looks like just metal pieces strapped to a jacket,
Sounds effective.
right? I mean, I think it's rail ties.
Like that would stop a bullet.
I think they like I don't know. It's weird, but
Is their whole faction just like train themed?
a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
They like trains. Okay.
I like train.
It's like they're supposed to be the underground railroad. That's the whole idea. So,
I like train.
and they're getting the synths out of there, and then they're wiping their memories so they don't know who they are, and then they just release them naked into the wasteland. And they're like, "Good luck."
Naked and afraid,
Yeah,
like the
straight
TV
up.
show.
Straight up. Yeah, railroad's kind of dumb, but the deliver is a good weapon, and the ballistic weave's pretty
And
solid.
then if you destroy the railroad, there's no purpose anymore.
Yeah, no, they're like a faction that's there around the important ones.
Or you could just, become the repo man and work for the Institute and just go
Honestly.
repossess all the synths.
Honestly, I actually have that as one of my saves, and it's pretty fun. Okay, well, then the deliverer for Banana and for Snicker, what is your favorite named weapon in the Fallout universe?
Yeah, so I chose out of Fallout New Vegas. You can collect it in Prim, I believe. It would be Lucky, which is a modified 357 Magnum revolver. It looks cool. That was my entire basis. It's got like a white handle, black
Ivory.
main part. Yeah,
It'd be great to pistol whip.
Snicker was sold on the fact it looks cool. But
it
let's
looks cool. You can also use it
You
to
can use
do
it.
the flying glitch that Mr. Baked Banana did a tutorial for.
You
Yep.
can?
Yeah, it's a Magnum.
Does it work, Banana? I thought you had to have specifically the 357.
It is a 3.
Does Lucky?
Lucky is the 357.
Yeah.
I know, but does it work because it's all custom? Have we tried it?
It says in the wiki that it works. So
Nobody's ever lied on a wiki.
Yeah, I'm assuming it works regardless. It just has to be a 357 Magnum revolver.
it's truth.
I'm pretty sure it's just a visual modification for the 357, and that's about it.
Which
I could be wrong, but
looks very nice. It's that
every time
ivory.
I've gotten it, it just looks like a visual modification, not an actual.
Does it have any effects on it?
It says it has a higher critical chance multiplier while costing less AP when using VATS.
No, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. And that's an early game gun too. You can get that real quick.
Well, you have to. I think it's locked behind something pretty hard to get into.
It is locked behind a very hard floor safe in not the lobby, but the gift shop area of the Bison Steve Hotel in Prim.
So you have to spec into lockpicking, I'm assuming, in order to get to it.
Yes.
You mean stealth archer? You're gonna stealth archer your
Stealth
way into it?
Archer! Hey,
Every
once
game.
again.
Every game. Okay, cool. Lucky, the deliverer. All right, TooRissky, what is your favorite named weapon in the Fallout universe?
I picked Hub's Alien Blaster. It's a weapon in the Fallout 4 add-on Nuka World, and Dara Hubble gives it to you for completing the Trip to the Stars quest. And like
Yeah.
Snicker, I picked it based off of looks because I haven't played the games. So it kind of gives me like Star Trek phaser vibes. So, and I'm a Trekkie, so I thought it was really cool looking. but it also critical shots deal double damage and the critical meter fills 15% faster. Cool looking blaster.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty solid gun. I do like the Star Trek vibes. It's got that 50s futuristic
And like the glowing neon on it.
and the glowing neon. And it's an energy weapon. So if you spec into energy weapons, they can end up being pretty solid. Have some fun stuff. And Nuka World was probably one of my favorite DLCs. I've heard people don't really like it as much as I did. They didn't like the story. They thought it was basic, or maybe it's the whole point of the DLC is to tear down everything that you already built with the Minuteman. So, I don't know. But Hub's Alien Blaster, I've used it before.
Seems cool.
On a side note, splatter cannon from Nuka World, solid gun.
I mean, with a name like Splatter Cannon, can't go wrong.
Ooh.
Oh, is that the one that I didn't like how it looked?
Colorful.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of all the Nuka guns that had like the paint all over them.
Is that the handmade rifle that's been like
Yes.
splatter painted?
Yeah,
That is correct.
I've never actually gotten that gun once.
It's got a legendary effect where it shoots like faster every time it shoots its target.
yeah. I think I took mine and I actually took off the back end. I made it like a short stubby, and then gave it a ton of ammo. And then I tried to. I think did I paint it? I might have painted it. If you can paint it, I definitely painted it because I didn't like that crap.
I can't remember.
But a really good weapon for what it is. So Hub's Alien Blaster, and then we've got Dab Ninja. How you doing? And what is your favorite named weapon in the Fallout universe?
I'm doing good, dude. How's it going, dude? I gotta keep that alive.
Gotta keep it alive.
For me, it is going to be the Lonesome Road DLC-based craftable weapon of the Fist of the North Rar, because as far as I know, that is the only legendary and or named Deathclaw gauntlet in that game. Like I know there's there's a named Mantis Claw weapon that you can get, but something about using a severed Deathclaw hand as a weapon is pretty freaking awesome in my
It's
opinion.
pretty
Like,
metal.
yeah.
I just ripped its arm
That,
off.
and I know it's a nod to, I think, I want to say like a 90s anime or a movie or something like that.
Not sure.
90s animes are my favorites.
I know it's supposed to be a pop culture reference, which is part of the reason why I like it, because I love it when Bethesda does stuff like that.
Yeah, where they bring in pop culture
Yeah.
and reference everything. It's like the other gun we were talking about. That gun that's from Blade Runner. Another good gun. Pretty cool. Melee builds get pretty ridiculous in New Vegas as well. So always a fun gun to use. Fun claw to use. Just shooting him with the Death Claw gauntlet.
Oh, I found the anime. It's a reference to the anime and manga Fist of the North Star, Hokuto no Ken, which takes place in a post-apocalyptic setting.
Okay, it's good.
That's cool. I'm gonna have to check out that anime.
Yeah, hold on. We'll have to check out this anime now.
What's it called?
Fist of the North Star.
Oh,
It's giving me like Baki vibes.
Or Berserk.
Baki, but like dressed like Mad Max.
Look at that. I might have just unintentionally started something.
These are things I like. Definitely like Mad Max vibes, but also Baki vibes, which I'm okay with. I like that. That'll be fun. Okay, cool. Which leaves me and my favorite named weapon in the Fallout universe. And I would have to go with a classic. I'm going to go with the Mysterious Magnum. You get this one from, what's that guy's name? It's actually his dad that runs the gun
Mysterious
around.
Stranger.
No,
Mysterious.
from the Lonesome Drifter in New Vegas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The Lonesome Drifter. And he's the one that plays the guitar, and you can get him a job at one of the casinos, right?
Yeah.
As an act. And in the Atomic Wrangler, if I'm not mistaken?
Nope. In the tops.
Is it at the tops? I thought the Atomic Wrangler did a bunch of acts too, and you had to gather them for him.
No, you get them a bunch of prostitutes at the Atomic Wrangler.
Oops.
The tops is where you go get, like, basically...
Listen, you do what you gotta in the wasteland, okay?
You get a
Okay.
comedian, you get a singer, you get a couple singers, actually. I think you get a dancer or something like that as well. Like,
Okay, that makes more sense. But anyway, you get the Mysterious Magnum from them, and it's like an ivory pistol. Is it a 357 or a 44?
I think it's 44.
It's a 44 Magnum, so it's obviously better than Nick's choice.
Oh, damn.
But it's also got the ivory handle and the kind of the inlay and everything. And the best part about it is it makes a noise every time you pull it out. It makes like Western like guitar noises, like. And then when you put it away, it goes. So pretty cool gun with the guitar reference and I don't know, it just gives you that Western vibe, and I think that's my favorite part
It's
about
a cool gun.
Fallout New Vegas and Fallout in general. It's like the Wild West again.
That's the thing with Fallout. They got a lot of cool guns.
They got a lot of cool guns. So you know what's interesting about this? Besides Dab Ninja, everybody chose pistols.
All Americans pretty solid.
I like pistols, and there's a lot of other good guns for sure.
My first thought that I originally was going to do was the survivalist rifle that you can get out of Zion Canyon that uses the 12.7 millimeter rounds instead.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I understand is that gun is a pain in the ass to get, and I've never gotten it. But I at least knew about the Fist of the North Rar. So, like, I'd rather pick something that I know a little bit more about.
For sure. And then you can actually, you don't have to find all that ammo, because sometimes that's the biggest problem is there's a cool gun and the ammo's
Later
scarce.
stages of the game, that's a lot of what Caesar's Legion will use.
The Fist of Rar.
No, the 12.7 millimeter rounds.
Oh, rounds. Okay, I was like, what? All of them just running around with Deathclaw gauntlets? Could you imagine?
No, that'd be terrifying, dog.
Right?
That'd be cool. I join.
I join. I like outfits and matching, so this seems cool. Those were our favorite named weapons, and let's go ahead and jump into the episode. Fallout Episode 7, The Radio. Our first scene opens up, and we're back in the desert. A lot of good desert scenes with abandoned houses, and this is one of them. And we see a couple guys. It kind of looks like the ghoul at first, almost, or like they're wearing cloaks and stuff. And it looks like they're waving metal detectors, and they're sifting for, assumedly, metal to make bullets. And I don't know, maybe they're looking for caps. But anyway, as we get closer to them, we find out that they're NCR Ranger armor. Talked about the NCR, and they're all blown up. And we got some Rangers, and they're kind of just looking for metal. What do you guys think of the Ranger armor?
Those helmets were not what I was expecting for them to be like a
Right?
forward face clasp where you can just lift it up. I thought it was going to be like a whole helmet you had to take off.
I think that's well, I say canon, but
But that's how they've always like implied it looking, kind of. Yeah.
no, I see. I'm kind of. It's always as one helmet, right?
Yep.
That's kind of what I felt like. It's like a helmet with the helmet on top, I guess. So it's like a double helmet. I guess it makes sense how they interpreted it, but basically the masks are looking kind of weird because the front of it looks like fatter than we're used to. Like if you play New Vegas, it's more of a sleeker design. I think it looks cleaner.
The eyes seem a little bit like bigger.
I've seen even cosplays that do it better than what they had here for the helmets. But like it's cool that they're NCR Rangers. I would argue that they could have done a better job with the Ranger helmet. I think they made them look kind of derpy. They look cheap, like they were like bobbling on their heads, like they were too big for them. And it's
Yeah.
like if you're gonna be a badass NCR Ranger, you wouldn't have your helmet not fit you perfectly, you know?
But do you think they actually are NCR Rangers, or did they just like find that armor?
Well, not anymore, right? I mean, they're probably
Yeah,
just
but like,
Rangers at this point. But I don't know. That's kind of what we find out going forward. But they could still be affiliated with the NCR. Like we don't know if any military factions survived or what. Anyway, they're trying to find some metal. We kind of just watch them do that for a second, and then they start going home. And it seems like it's almost like a dad and his son, actually. So maybe they're not both like maybe the dad was a ranger and he just has two sets of armor, I guess, or maybe somebody else died or something. I'm not sure.
Maybe he found the armor.
Maybe his wife was a ranger too or something.
I mean, they're farming bullets. It's likely that they're gonna find armor with the bullets.
Were they farming bullets?
No, they were looking for bullets. They were just using metal detectors.
Well, they're looking for lead,
You can't farm a bullet.
right?
But they're like right outside their house.
No, they weren't right outside their house. That's the other
it's a
problem.
little ways.
That's the problem with the show, right? Is like they have so much to show, they can't show us having them trek. So they definitely went out to scavenge for stuff, but like we don't know how far away they went. They lived in a much greener area
It's just the
But,
same.
all right, but here's my. I don't know if you'd want to be like out in the wasteland, walking around in NCR armor.
after it's gotten all blown up.
Yeah,
But the Rangers have a reputation. No one messes with Rangers.
I
And
mean,
even
they
if
did have a reputation.
they still have a reputation, like it doesn't change that you're a ranger or not, right? Like the armor speaks for itself, just like a power armor would speak for itself, except more loudly. They could be respected that way. Also, there's two of them. I'd bet if there were some fiends, they might go after them, but they didn't. They get back to their house. They're calling for Sandra. Sandra, we're home, and like they're calling for her, and they don't see, like, don't hear, and they get up to their little shack, and they look inside, and it's the ghoul, and the ghoul's sitting there at his table facing the open door, and he's eating dinner, and he's munching and munching. The ranger, like the dad ranger, the older one, is like, oh my, like he looks terrified, right? Like he's like, oh crap, like, and it kind of seemed like they were implying that the ghoul was like eating Sandra. Like, did you guys get that vibe?
Yeah,
It w-
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
something like that.
They definitely put on that vibe of like he's like chewing and chewing. And then Sandra walks in and pours him a glass of water or something. And the ghoul's like, oh, thank you, darling. And then he goes, oh, wait, you thought, and he like points at the food and then points at the girl, like, you thought I was eating your daughter?
He said what we were all thinking.
Right? And it's just, it's kind of like, damn, like that was the first thought that guy had when he came into his house. Like, and this man sitting in this ghoul. So it seems like there's history, maybe?
He's probably got a reputation.
The ghoul definitely does.
Yeah, I didn't get the vibe that there was history, but that, that there's reputation. A ghoul is sitting in my house. Like, just like any stranger sitting in your house
But
would be like, excuse
It's
me.
the ghoul, right?
It is.
And that's what they've been saying about. Ghoul calls him out on lead farming, and because he sees the bullets and stuff. And he's like, hey, I'm not looking for a fight or anything. I don't like want to fight you. And no, this is why I think they know each other, because he says, I probably still got some of your lead in me somewhere. So I think he's implying that they've been in shootouts before.
Possible, yeah.
So they've definitely ran into each other, which is why the NCR Ranger's kind of nervous. The ghoul's just looking for information, and he says as much. And he said, hey, actually, I'm out of date. I heard you have 3 kids. And he's talking, to the ranger. And the ranger's like, yeah, I had an older son, but he's gone now. He took up with that mad woman in the hills. That's a weird sentence, because I think they're implying it's Moldaver.
Yeah.
But at
That
the
makes
same
sense.
time, in this universe, maybe
It could be
there's
anybody.
just a mad woman up in the hills 2 years ago.
Could have been Majun.
Yeah, entranced her. Took him. Yeah. But I don't know. I thought it was a funny sentence. Mad woman in the hills 2 years ago. And they hadn't heard from him since, is what he's saying. And the ghoul's like, all right, yeah, cool. Always some new faction, people joining up, kids trying to save the world, right? And he's like, what was his name again? He's like, Rufus. And he's like, okay, that makes you Tommy, which he points to the other kid. As soon as he talks about Tommy, Adam, the NCR's Ranger name
The
is
dad.
Adam. He turns to the kid, he goes, what did you do? Immediately, he's like, the only reason he would know your name is if he was looking for you. Like, what's going on? Was it that envelope? Which implies that there was something going on, right? And that's when the ghoul says, like, yeah, I don't think you realize, like, you may have said bye to Rufus, your oldest son, 2 years ago, but it sounds like Tommy's a little mixed up in this stuff, too. According to this, Rufus sent Tommy a stash of caps to pay a courier for the safe transport of an Enclave defector. Couple things here. Courier. I love that the couriers are still kind of a thing out in the wasteland. And then a courier was paid for the safe transport of an Enclave defector. We haven't seen a courier anywhere.
No.
So here's the thing. Technically, Thaddeus, Lucy, Max, anyone who comes in contact with that head is a courier, because they are trying to bring it from point A to point B to receive their payment upon delivery of said package.
But they don't know that. There would like that. I get what you're saying. They're all like technically couriers, but they're saying very deliberately that Rufus from Moldaver, they sent Tommy a stash of caps to find a courier for the safe transport. Right? So somebody hired Moldaver hired a person. Who is that person? That's what
That
I'm
was
saying.
Ma June.
You think Ma June counts as the courier?
She said that a couple, what, episode 1 or 2 or whatever?
Okay,
That
that would
she
make
was getting
sense.
paid good by Moldaver to get that guy wherever he
then
needs
she
to
just
go.
So then she just hands it off on Lucy.
Yeah.
She just straight up is like, I don't want to do it, you go.
So then Lucy becomes the courier.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I was like, who was the courier?
Unknowingly, she becomes the courier.
Okay, cool. I was like, what ties these guys into it? And this is cool because the ghoul's like trying to put the pieces together, kind of building the story for us, kind of, tracking, trying to figure out where everyone's going. That very same mad woman in the hills, Moldaver. So it is Moldaver that they're talking about. But the problem is, by the time they got the letter, it was a little hard to read. And then he holds up the letter and he shows it to the kid and the dad, and it's got a huge bullet hole with a bunch of blood on it. He's like, so I couldn't find the location based off of this.
It's like, huh, there's a hole in here.
Yeah, right.
How would that get there?
So Tommy looks up at his dad. His dad's like, dude, freaking tell him what he needs to know. It's like, don't worry about it. I don't care. Tell him what he needs to know. And Tommy's like trying to explain himself. He's like, I didn't want to spend my life digging through the dirt. Like, obviously crapping on his dad for what they were just doing. He's like, I want to do something. And that's when his dad cuts him off and says, listen, you tell him what he wants to know, or he's going to kill you. He's going to kill me. And he's going to kill your little sister. Tommy's like, oh crap. And then he's like, she's at the observatory. So now we know Moldaver hides at the observatory that stands over LA. And I think that's awesome.
Which is the woman on the hill.
The mad woman up in the hills. But that's pretty sweet because I don't know if you guys have been to the observatory.
I have.
But it's pretty
really cool.
No, I've never been.
I mean, you've been there. I'm pretty sure they had a map in Call of Duty at the observatory. Or something like that.
Listen, boy, that's not the same thing.
Got some like museum things in it and like
It's cool. You got to park. You got to hike up the hill. It's kind of like off by itself. It's like, it's a nice little like afternoon thing to do, but that's where she's camped out. And it's actually kind of secluded. So it makes sense.
That's not where they where she was holding the meeting, right? In the flashback.
no, that was at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
That was a cemetery. Okay.
Yeah, which is random, but we'll get into that. So she's at the observatory. The guy says, now please leave. Like we told you, get out of here. And the ghoul's like, okay, here's a problem though. And he looks at Tommy. He's like, am I really walking out of here today? Or are you going to try and draw on me? Basically, are you going to try and kill me for what I did to your brother?
You gonna try some funny stuff,
Right? You
boy?
going to try anything? And the guy's like, no, he's not going to do anything. Tommy, don't do anything. Don't do anything. And the ghoul's like, well, maybe not today, but maybe someday. And then there's kind of this tense moment. And then Tommy pulls on him like a dumbass, pulls a shotgun on him, and is immediately shot by the ghoul. The ghoul's so fast you don't even see it. Drops
He
him.
doesn't even get to the shotgun. He like reaches for it and the ghoul's already shot
dead.
him.
Yeah, it's so fast. I mean, the ghoul probably had his gun under the table, right? Which the NCR Ranger's like, don't mess with him. He's gonna kill us. Like, don't do this. He'll do whatever he wants.
I'm gonna mess with him.
But kind of sad for Tommy and kind of sad for this ex-NCR Ranger because he
Yeah.
walks out and, dude, the Ranger doesn't do anything because he knows he'll die and his daughter will die. So he like just kind of like is sad about his kid Tommy. But the ghoul walks out, takes a hit of his drugs.
If dad dies, who's gonna take care of the daughter?
Exactly. So, well, and I mean, he told him, don't fight him. That ghoul's bad news. Give him what he wants. Let him go away. Like sometimes in the wasteland, you just gotta like sacrifice your pride and let it go. But Tommy didn't listen, and now Tommy's blood all on the floor. All right, this is actually a pretty decent scene transition because, like, as the ghoul's walking out, we hear Moldaver's voice actually as the scene's transitioning. We're in a church, or is this the
Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
This is like the cemetery. It's kind of like a church though, because it's got a bunch of pews. So maybe those are like for the like.
That's probably where they hold funeral services. Yeah.
Yeah. So and we're back in time, and Moldaver is talking, and she's talking to a crowd. Everybody's sitting on these benches, and Cooper Howard, the before ghoul, is chilling. He's sitting on one of the rows with his buddy Charlie that convinced him to come in the past episode. Moldaver's preaching, and she's talking about like, what is California? Why'd we come to this place? We liked it. We were promised the American dream here. We were told about, the bomb was made to end war. Well, that's not working out. The future is getting closer, and we can see it. And basically, the future she's saying is coming is they're gonna all die, right? There's bad things going on, and it's being manipulated. And why are we trusting Vault-Tec? Basically, the American dream's kind of been taken over and killed. Cooper kind of like says, he's like, this is about all much of this horse shit I can take, and kind of gets up to walk out. And I keep seeing Williams, and that's throwing me off because Williams is Moldaver. That's my problem.
Yeah, she went by Williams before the bombs dropped.
Yeah, so Williams, or Moldaver, it says, Mr. Howard, catches him while he's in the aisle, and says, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear what you said. And he's got balls, man, because he just turns around and says, he's like,
Right?
this is about all the horse shit I can take. Like, doesn't hold back. And everyone's like, oh, right? And Williams is like, wow, I didn't know you were so sensitive. America's favorite gunslinger, right? Cooper's like, well, I have my principles, Miss Williams. That's all. Williams is kind of still poking at him, right? So like it's very obvious she wanted to poke at him specifically. And she's like, and those principles of yours, how much does Vault Tech pay you to take them off your hands? And it's kind of like this debate back and forth all of a sudden, right? She's found a person that doesn't agree with their ideology and is actually working for Vault Tech. So she
I
needs to
would
like
say indirectly. Like, I don't think Howard's working directly with them, but like he did do a sales pitch,
I think
for
that they bought him, right? They basically it's exactly like the Mr. Handy dude. They signed a contract to have him be their like front man, right? It's the perfect front man. America's favorite gunslinger. He was an ex-soldier, right? And he says Voltec's good. He's one of the people like that people like. He's a movie star. He's salt of the earth though. He was a rancher before, so they definitely like paid for him to be their guy, to be the
He
vault
probably
boy.
doesn't think of it that way.
He
He
doesn't.
probably thinks of it as just doing an ad.
I don't think he does.
I
And,
think
like,
there's more. I think there's a contract.
working with his
I think
wife.
there's a contract in place that we just don't realize because they talked about how much the other guy was
There's
in the
gotta be.
contract. Like,
Like, any acting gig is a contract.
but yeah, Cooper was like, she kind of rips at him about the money. She's like, there's a lot of money in selling the end of the world, Vault Tech, basically. And Cooper says, well, there's a lot of money in selling political ideology. Ends in bread lines. Basically attacks her directly. And that's when everybody freaks out and is like fascist and like says stuff at him. Charlie gets up at this point. He's like, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have brought my buddy. He's obviously not good here. We'll be leaving. And Williams is like, no, 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 no. I'm glad you brought him today. You see, I know your wife, he says to Cooper. Perhaps a side of her that you don't know. And that's what gets him. Because Cooper's been curious about what his wife's doing at Vault-Tec this whole time. And she plants the seed in his head. I may know some information that you don't know. And then it flashes a little bit forward. And Cooper's basically, he was intrigued. And Moldaver's Williams is walking him out and talking to him. Cooper's like, well, how do you know my wife? And this is where Williams kind of lays out some stuff I find pretty interesting. She says, I was part of a research company. And what we did was we were developing a technology that's like difficult to monetize because it's cold fusion. It's basically infinite energy. And she's like, we were on the verge of getting that. And guess who swept in and bought us out? Vault. And bought every single one of those companies that she worked for. And Cooper's like, well, aren't you then just a millionaire communist? And Williams is like, listen, hypocrisy is like violence in your movies. If you only let the bad guys use it, the bad guys win. So she's kind of like trying to defend herself here. And she's like, I'm just using their money to fight against them, right? They bought me all out and I'm using it to kind of point stuff out. Though I don't know, like, why would she let it go? Maybe she wasn't like she didn't own all the shares in it or something. So maybe she just was a researcher and she just kept getting bought out.
Yeah, that was
Like,
my question. Is she a scientist or is she just like a marketing person?
I feel like she's a scientist, but hear me out. When we mentioned cold fusion just like a second ago, I was about to say that almost sounds like the Garden of Eden creation kit that you find in like Fallout 3 or
you
like
think so?
Fallout 2.
That would
I
make sense because they
Wondering
bought
if
it.
she was the one that created the fusion cores.
No, because they're saying they're saying cold fusion, which is it's different. It's going to be infinite energy.
Oh,
So they're
okay.
saying like this would solve the war, right? If this was created, if they funded this instead of all their vaults, then they could probably end the war and humanity could advance. Instead, they bought it and now they're not using it at all. Where's it going? Why aren't they even exploring the possibility that it might work? And I think Dab Ninja's right. I think they're using it as like the GEC or something. Like they're using it as one of their experiments for one of their vaults because they've already made up their minds on what they're doing. So she talks about like we've been locked in this war forever. Vault-Tec buys basically the means to end it, doesn't do crap, right? So she plants that doubt in his head. And then she says, I need you to do this. And she holds out this little like device thing. And it looks like a little bolt or something. And it's a listening device. And she gives it to Cooper. And Cooper actually says, you want me to spy on my wife? He knows immediately what she wants. And because he's suspicious. And she doesn't say yes. She doesn't say anything. She just kind of nods. She's letting him do it. She's letting him walk through it by himself because he's convincing himself. Super good manipulation right there.
Dude, that's like the best kind.
right? Like he's just like you do it yourself. So he's gonna try and like he considers it for a while, but then he goes to give it back to her. And he says like good luck with the revolution, and she's like no, just keep it as a token. She's like I'm not a communist, Mr. Howard. That's just a dirty word they use to describe people who aren't insane. And then she walks off, and then Cooper's kind of looking at the device again, and then we get title screen, Fallout. And it's like ooey yellow green bubbly fluid and like some underwater sounds. So it's kind of gooey looking. Reminds me of like maybe the gulpers or something or
Like the tank.
yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
it's gross.
I had one question, which is earlier they kept talking about how for his TV show, the screenwriter, I don't know if he was thrown in jail or if he was fired, and then like another director was fired because they were all suspected communists. She's preaching some pretty heavy, anti-capitalist stuff. Why isn't she in trouble or like in prison or in jail?
They can't find her because she's hiding at the
At the
cemetery.
cemetery. That doesn't seem like a good enough reason, especially with all those people in there.
Well, she's a huge scientist, right? So she was working on some pretty hefty stuff. Maybe she's got connections that are keeping her hidden. But you think Vaultec would probably keep tabs on Cooper?
Probably.
Especially because he lives like with a scientist who obviously knows a lot of stuff.
She could be like leading her own little mini revolution, and that's like what she lives off of or something. I don't
She
know.
takes donations. No, she's a millionaire, remember? Because all the companies
Yeah,
that she ended up
true.
working for kept getting
Then
bought
bought her
out,
out.
and so she got paid out.
So she doesn't need to work to live then.
No.
She's got the money.
So she's just inciting revolution because she thinks they're going to destroy the world.
For moral reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. She actually seems like the one person trying to do something good, but she seems shady.
They're all
She
kind of
does.
shady.
Like, how is she still young? Like, I hope we find out how she's still young in 200 years later after the bombs fell. So we'll have to see how they do that.
The synth theory is cool.
The synth
Yeah,
theory
that-
would be pretty
I
good,
hope I'm right about that.
Right?
right? Because then they could tie in the Institute. That would be so sick. And maybe the Institute doesn't get found. I don't know. I guess
Well,
Fallout 4,
because
you
they
pretty much
kind of nodded that
you
in
go blow it
Fallout
up.
3, even if you do the replicated man quest. So, like, it's
Yeah.
not that far out of the reality for the Fallout universe that there's synthetic people that are, man and machine.
So is she just then? Well, then it will become the whole conversation of was she programmed to be like the original Moldaver? What is she trying to do? What's the what's her goals? Because it just seems like she's a big gang leader at this point,
But here's
right?
the thing, because, like, if she did work for a company that had scientific ties, there is a possibility that they took her body when she did die, pre-war or whatever, ran experiments, turned her into a synth, uploaded her memories. There's a whole way of, possibilities of how it could have happened.
Yeah, right. Like she's 200 years old or whatever, and she looks way better than the ghoul turned out.
Would you rather be a synth or a ghoul?
the synth, right?
Synth, easy.
Yeah. Synth.
But it's not actually you, right?
You don't know.
Yeah, but you know what? I'd rather be wannabe me than a ghoul me where my body's falling apart and there's a chance eventually over time I'm gonna go insane.
And everybody treats you like crap.
Well, if you're a synth and you never age, and then you find out that you're fake and you're not actually a person, and you're not actually who you were,
Okay, but
you
if
just have
I'm
all these memories, would you not also go insane?
I can handle it.
if I'm allowed to be a synth, then they're gonna just copy me from me, and yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how they download the consciousness, because obviously there's got to be enough of it coming from the past one that you can't tell.
If you get me for me, sure, I won't have a problem, but I don't want to be someone else. No, that's not how this works.
But also, do synths grow at all? Because, like, think about Fallout
No.
4.
No, they don't grow.
Dude, that sucks for the Fallout 4 then, because you just got this kid that's never gonna age.
They bring that up.
But hear me out. If you do the Institute playthrough, you become the director. Theoretically, you could just age up your synth when they're ready to, essentially go into the next part of life.
Would you have to
Well,
age their
look.
mentality, though, too?
You'd probably
Yeah.
just have to upload a protocol or, something,
But at that point, it's not them, right? Like, it's like...
Don't worry about it.
It's not worrying about it.
Well, it would still be whatever memories that synth makes. It's just all that data to be being put into like an adult version of that body. Or yes, synths do grow, and we just don't know about it. Because
Yeah.
Sean is the only
They're
child
created.
synth that I know of in that game.
Well, and when you watch them be created, it looks like they're putting on like all the. Or am I mixing this with Westworld and how they built their synths, like where they actually use like almost like human bodies? Because there's a lot of versions of the synths too. So there's the ones that are
Almost
more
3D printed.
Yeah, right. They're basically 3D printed, right? Or they put together. Are they more robotic? There's a lot of synths that are robotic. So, but then you got like Nick Valentine, where they put the consciousness in him, but he's built, so he's like a robot, but he's not. It's pretty cool.
And could synths also be affected by like weather? Because like comparing Moldaver from when we see her in the first episode invading Vault 33 to before the bombs drop, like it looks like she has aged a little bit. She's got some more wrinkles, but it looks like her like skin has been a little bit weathered from being exposed to the
She looks
elements
tougher,
like that.
That
harder,
would
right?
probably be like
Yeah.
natural sunburn or
Yeah.
something like that. Because I don't know, I'm trying to think of like as logically to like Fallout 4 what they've given us to do with synths in that aspect. And it does seem like you do need like a host body at some point, which I'm going to assume is used either with artificial skin or real skin. So I still think it would not necessarily decay or rot, but still suffer some effects, like scarring, bleeding, burning, maybe not decay or rot, but like physical things like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Interesting theory.
That's what we're leaning on. Synth. We'll have to see how it turns out. That or she got cryo froze. Those are kind of the only two options I can think of.
Well, I'm leaning more something with like that cold fusion.
Like maybe she's got a backup plan.
Like, sure, you could probably use that cold fusion to like harness energy, but you could also probably do it to do a lot more.
Such as.
Keep yourself like refrigerated.
Yeah, she just gets into a fridge every night.
I mean,
Basically a back to tank.
Yeah, it seems like there's two theories. Like, yeah, she froze herself and then woke up as herself, or she made some sort of copy of herself that lasted until the modern times.
Could clones like survive that long? Like not necessarily a one single clone, but like if you make a clone and then like 10 years later you make another clone, so you just kind of have like overlapping until you reach 200 years in the future or something like that.
yes.
So is she transporting
but-
her brain into a new body, or
So she could either be a clone, a synth, or cryo
Wait,
frozen.
is that the whole thing with Gary? Is that he kept cloning himself and then he
Yeah,
became mentally
that's
unstable?
what I was gonna. That's what I was actually gonna point out. Is yes, there is cloning in the Fallout universe, but the issue with that is the mental stability starts to become less and less the more it happens.
Yeah.
So if she was a clone at some point, after 200 years, she would just be absolutely insane.
He'd just be running around yelling Moldaver.
Moldaver? Moldaver.
Aha, Moldaver.
Man, I just want to go play New Vegas.
That's Fallout 3.
I actually had another thought. We were thinking like cemetery is kind of a weird place for a communist meeting.
But maybe that's where all her clones are.
Ooh. I was thinking about it, and maybe it's symbolic for like the death of America.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. She's already pretty manipulative, so like it's a good idea.
Right.
Like she's probably thinking about that. Also, no one's gonna suspect that you're having your communist meetings at a cemetery, kind of a random place.
Yeah. Anyway,
You
that was
think
all.
they're doing something weird there? Nah. They're a cult. They're a cult.
Bunch of communists.
Why else do you have it in a cemetery? Bunch of freaking cultists.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on. We are in Vault 4. Birdie and Oversee Benjamin, the one-eyed man, are standing in front of Lucy, who they caught from level 12. They're kind of like, we let you into our home. We helped you out. We gave you food and water, and you betrayed us like this. And Benjamin's, you had to go to level 12. And Lucy's like, I saw what you guys were doing to those poor women. Like, you're the gross ones. You're sick. And Birdie's like, she needs to see the tape. And Benjamin's like, okay, play the tape.
Apart, like the way that they said that felt like they almost like rehearsed it to be like for dramatic effect.
You
or
think so?
something like that.
She needs to see the holotape.
Maybe I've just been watching too much Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah, right. Because it's kind of.
Or they've been waiting for that moment forever for someone to finally break into level 12 just so they could.
Show the tape. I don't
Yeah.
know, because then he talks about how anyway, we'll talk about the tape and then we'll kind of see what they do. So Birdie plays a holotape, and on this holotape, it's the original scientist that Cooper actually filmed with on their commercial in Vault 4, where he's like, You remember those scientists? He's like, this one's going to be a community of scientists, and they're dedicated to making sure that radiation won't affect you anymore and all this stuff, right? So it's those scientists, and they're kind of panicking. And one of them's looking at the screen, and he's like, despite results here, I just want to say, like, society is governed by scientists is like still a good idea. Like, okay. And in the background, there's a lady like putting up a bunch of stuff against the door, and like there's banging and growling and stuff. And he's like, what happened here shouldn't be a case study for what happens when scientists are given unregulated control. And you're just like, oh no, this is getting worse. And the lady's like, Lloyd, I need your help. Come on. And Lloyd's like, the hybridizing humans with radioactive resistant species still has potential. And like, they're watching this, right? Lucy's like, what the crap is happening? But our test subjects were less compliant than we expected. And that's when the door bursts open, knocking over the camera. And then you see someone's yanking Cassandra, the other lady that was in the other scientist, out of the frame. And Lloyd's scrambling up before a gulper steps in, grabs him, and drags him away. And the image freezes right on a gulper. So those scientists basically were doing some experimentation. And that's why those ladies are all like pregnant with the little baby gulpers, and the video we saw and everything. And that's like the aftermath is like they're just kind of protecting them. And it's funny because the overseer actually like wipes away a tear, and he's like, it's been a long time since I've seen that video. And he's like, but it's a stirring reminder of what this place is all about. So that's why I'm saying I don't know if they rehearsed it or if they're excited to show this video.
He seemed pretty shook up.
Yeah, it like really shook him up. And Lucy doesn't get it, right? She's like, but wait, I saw like you guys were doing it. And Birdie's like, listen, we're trying to like help these people. Like these people are lured into this place, and his ancestors, the one-eyed dude, were used as lab rats by the original residents of Vault 4. And this kind of explains everything that's going on so far in 4, and why they have their little cult, and how they worship Moldaver, and how they're like, we accept everybody, and how they're so nice and everything's so good.
And everyone's got like some weird deformation.
Right, and that explains the one eye, that explains the nose, that explains the weird glowing eyes. Benjamin's like, actually, the creature in that video was my great uncle Peter on my mom's side. Like, what the crap? So,
Random.
yeah, well, that's why the video was like so much for him. Lucy feels terrible, of course, right? She's like, I had no idea that the dwellers here were so weird. I mean, my vault's not like this. That's when Benjamin actually puts it on her. He says, well, what was the experiment in Vault 33? And Lucy's like, what do you mean? There is no experiment. And Birdie and Benjamin look at each other, and it's like that look like she doesn't know that like she's the experiment. And they kind of gloss over that.
Well, that's what you've been saying, but I don't get that vibe from that.
You don't get the vibe.
What vibe do you get?
I get the vibe like more like, oh, their vault doesn't have an experiment.
That's what I'm saying. Like they are saying like there's no experiment. They look at each other almost knowingly. Like they're like, there's got to be some experiment in there, and she just doesn't know.
We know from Fallout lore, though, that not every vault was set up to be an experiment. Like, they were all being overseen, yes, but not. They were all set to still open and, like...
Okay, but hear me out on this one. We've got 3 vaults, 31, 32, 33. 32 already freaked out because they figured out everything that they were doing was controlled by 31. That's the experiment. Not only that, there's Vault 33 as well. They're part of the experiment. And there's actually some stuff, I can't remember when they say it. It's either this episode or the one before. I think it's Betty who says it, and she says, like, words have meaning. And she keeps stressing that.
Episode, I think.
Is it this episode later on?
Well, she keeps saying it throughout the entire like season.
Right? So I'm wondering
when she really says it to your face is this episode.
Right? Okay, so we'll get there, but I have a feeling that has to do with the experiment in Vault 33 that we don't understand yet. So, something. But anyway, they basically say Birdie and Benjamin are like, you still were really mean to everybody. You brought violence into our home, and now you must pay the price. Guards storm in, and they grab Lucy, and she's like, no, I'm a good person. No! And they drag her out. And then it flashes to Max, and this is hilarious because Max is like completely, he doesn't know what's going on.
Always just eating popcorn, watching TV.
He's having a good time for like the first time in his life.
He's watching a video of a waterfall.
Yeah. He's just enjoying himself.
He's just mashing that popcorn down. And he's like laughing, having a good time. And through the window behind the TV, you see Lucy getting dragged by the Vault Tech security as they drag him by. And he's kind of like looking at them, and he gets a little bit more serious. He's looking at the popcorn. He's looking at the window. He's looking at the popcorn. Look at the window, and he grabs a handful, shoves it into his mouth, and stands up. Still got that last handful before he's like, okay, I gotta go fix this Lucy problem now.
He's like, you get your hands off her.
Yep.
It's my
So
woman.
that's where that scene ends, and it seems like Max is gonna do something about Lucy getting captured, and Lucy's gonna get executed or something. Something's gonna happen. She's got to pay the consequences. And then we get one of the best songs in the entire series. 16 Tons is playing, and very anti-capitalistic vibes, which is kind of a theme across the show.
Let's go.
But
This is America.
got that song stuck in Snickerer's head. But we're with Thaddeus. Remember, he's the one that has the head. We haven't seen him in a minute, and he dipped on Max after he took the fusion core. He's lugging his big old Squire bag, and he's walking up to a Red Rocket station, which I thought they did a really good job with this Red Rocket station, looking like it's from the Fallout universe.
It's got your classic power armor station out front.
Yeah, they did a lot of there's a bunch of junk out front, right? There's cars, there's broken down stuff, but like the design itself is the 50s, and it looks very much like it's from the game. So they did a solid job.
One thing I'm gonna go ahead, like I always thought it was funny that they had power armor stations like just around, like everybody just had a piece of power
Yeah,
armor.
just working on my power armor. That's a good
They
point.
had military power armor. Did they just have like construction power armor?
Yes, actually.
You know what they did in '76?
Yeah, 76. And then technically, I guess the Pitts power armor stuff, there's some stuff in there. Or am I just thinking of the buzzsaw?
They have the buzzsaw, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. They have those things everywhere, but it definitely seems, and maybe the military is more spread out inside the country than we think. You know what I mean? Maybe they're
Maybe
like
when you
waiting.
retire, you get to keep your set, so
I
everybody has
doubt
one.
it.
That'd be
I
cool,
doubt
though.
it.
Just
Right?
you
Yeah, just
discharged, and here's your power armor. Go
Yeah, I
have
was gonna
Oh,
fun.
say,
sweet.
is it like guns, like guns in America? Instead, you just have power armor.
That'd be cool.
You just got like, yeah, I got my license to carry my power armor.
It's my Second Amendment right to
It's my second
throw
amendment
rocks across the area.
to bear power armor. But anyway, back with Thaddeus. He's lugging his bag, and he's got CX-404 dog meat with him, allegedly. The dog's actually like biting at the bag and like kind of making Thaddeus struggle. And Thaddeus is already limping because if you remember, Max stomped on his foot in the power armor. So like he's kind of injured and stuff. There's a good lyrical matchup to what's happening here with the 16 tons because it goes, but a poor man's made of muscle and blood and skin and bones. And it goes on. He sits down in the trunk of a car and he hefts the bag into the trunk and he shoves it in there. He sits on the bumper. He looks at the dog and he says, like, can you stop? Like, are you done? He pulls his boot off, the one of the foot that got stomped on, and then he pulls the sock off. And this is where the lyrics come into play with the muscle and blood and skin and bone, because his foot is just squashed and there's bone and there's his big
Mangled.
toe's like hanging and there's no support and it's like just disgusting, right? Like it's just smashed and gross and there's muscle and there's blood and there's
And he's
bone.
like, I'm gonna die. And it's like, yeah, you sure are.
It's like, oh shit, I'm gonna fucking die. Like immediately Thaddeus is like, I'm done.
It's crazy that he was walking on that.
Limping on it, right?
Yeah.
And just being like, this is fine. This is fine. And that he hadn't taken a stim pack up to that point. Or maybe he did.
He probably has some in his
So like
bag.
maybe the pain was dulled. Well, he's gotta have a stim pack, right? Like it's like the basic healing thing of the wasteland.
That makes more sense than just, toughing through it.
Yeah, no, he
And
probably
And Max never used it on Titus. So
well, it's a new bag
I
too
still
with a
have
bunch
one.
of new stuff. So and the dog actually like tries to lick his foot, and Thaddeus is like, "Hey, that's not food. That's my foot." And he's like, "You know what? If you were a person, you wouldn't have any friends." You realize he's like he's bullying the dog. The CX-404 is a good dog. He's like, "Meow," and like lays down.
Bestest girl.
Bestest
Yeah.
girl. And Thaddeus is all like, yo, okay, so I gotta, what do I need to do? I gotta figure this out. He takes out Wilzig's head and he's like, everybody wants this head. It's mine. I don't care. And he's like, looks at the dog and he's like, you think everything's for you. And he's kind of like, he's like bullying the dog. He's like, you're pretty selfish.
I was gonna say Loki, he's an asshole to the dog, and I really did not like that.
Yeah, he doesn't really like the
You
dog.
can tell a lot about a character by how they treat
Animals,
animals.
yeah.
Well, and the dog keeps like tugging on him, and like I don't know. There's just not. He doesn't
I
have
think
a
the
natural
dog just
rapport
wants
with the
the
dog.
head.
The dog just wants the head.
I would understand being like frustrated, like your foot is mangled. I'm annoyed. I've been trekking across the desert with this stupid dog nipping at my bag and making things harder for me, and I can't get rid of him. So, like, I can see Thaddeus being frustrated and like annoyed, but like he's still being really mean to the dog.
Yeah, and he pulls out. He reaches into his bag. He grabs a fusion core, and he's like, "You can't eat this!" and then he puts it inside his jacket. And then he sees a Nuka Cola fridge nearby, and he looks at the dog, and he's like, "You know what? I got a great idea. Lots of space." And he picks up the dog, and he actually puts him in the Nuka Cola freezer. And he's like, "You're a loose cannon, okay? Like, I can't have you jeopardizing my mission for the Brotherhood." He's like, "This is bigger than me, bigger than you, bigger than all of us." Like, he's kind of justifying the fact that he's about to just shut this dog in a fridge and leave it.
It's not justifiable.
Yeah, he does the like, and I actually like this because he's like slow closing the door, and he's like, boop, 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 and then he just closes. He's like, okay, but he's like, it's almost like he's like playing with a kid or something, right? Like closing it. And I don't know. Closes the door on the dog, and he's like, "See, you got a little window. Everything, you'll be fine." And the dog's like starts scratching and whining and stuff. He's like, "You can breathe in there. You're fine." He's like, "I gotta find a radio tower. I gotta contact the Brotherhood and get them this head and get me some glory," which is what they've been looking for this whole time. And so he turns on his radio receiver and starts limping off.
It's kind of we already kind of touched on this, but it's a sharp contrast to how he treated Knight Titus. Like he was very easygoing and like helpful and friendly, and I'll do whatever you say. And then as soon as he gets somebody who's kind of beneath him, kind of like the dog, he's a bully and not very nice.
He's back to the bully that he was when he was in the Brotherhood.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I didn't like that character change.
the hierarchy here is definitely like the Brotherhood's hierarchy is definitely instilled in him. And obviously, I mean, think about it. Knight Titus, the original Knight Titus, made the first thing he made Max do was clean his freaking cock piece. Like, are you kidding me? That's the first thing you do? Kind of a dick move. And then was a dick later on, was super abusive to Max, right? Who's somebody under him. And then Max and Thaddeus were friends because, like, in Max's mind, they were more equal. And in Thaddeus's mind, obviously, Max was supposed to be the knight, so he's above him. So he's, he was kissing ass because eventually he wants to be the knight.
Respecting him a little more.
But it does seem like the Brotherhood is basically run by some bullies, and you kind of see that in military organizations like that. It kind of makes sense, but I think he's smart about the dog because in reality, if he is trying to complete this mission, the dog is the wild card, and the dog would try and take it, right? And he's already injured, and he's just trying to get home. I'm not justifying him being nice, but like it made sense what he did with the dog.
Wasn't there a wanted poster for the dog on the first episode? So, like, why isn't he just
Yep.
taking the dog with him because there's a bounty on the dog as well as the head?
Okay, but
Maybe it's because if you find the dog, you find the head, because the dog's going to keep following the head.
I don't think they're so worried about the dog.
But isn't there something special about that dog? Isn't that why, like, Wilzig stashed the dog away out of all the other ones?
No,
It is Enclave property.
so I think it's more like Wilzig kept the dog because he didn't want to fry it because he wanted a pet dog and he felt bad because he's not as bad a person as all the other Enclave people. And then when he escaped, he of course took his dog with him because otherwise they would have probably just killed the dog. And then it's his dog, so like when you have somebody escape, you got to give details about him. And one of the details is that he has a German Shepherd with him. So I'm thinking it's more like they're just using that to be like, there's a man and his dog that are out. I don't think they're
Like an
this is a
identifier.
huge suspect, and that dog, that asshole has so much information. We got to bring him in. And if that's the case, like, was the dog supposed to be in alive? Because the Brotherhood only got a printout of the scientist.
No, they got dog.
I thought they got a printout of
No,
both.
the Brotherhood also got a printout of the dog. They got both. So my thought is that it's just the dog is just Enclave territory, and they're just or not territory property, and they just want their property back
It has the chip
because
in
the
there,
dog
right?
was still being put through
No,
like
the chip was
yeah,
put
he probably
in.
has a chip,
I don't know if you put the chip in the
and he's
dog.
labeled CX404. Sorry, and that's the vibe that I was getting. That they just want their property back.
Yeah, I don't. I'm other way. I don't think they care about the dog as much as they just want the
Well,
head.
so the Brotherhood of Steel would not return property to the Enclave, though. Like,
That's true too.
the beef between them's too big for them to squash. It's, kind of
I just
a
don't think there's anything in the dog. I don't think he chipped the dog. We never saw him chip the dog. He took it away before they do the chipping or frying, and brought it all the way back to his home and hid it in a hole forever. Nobody knew about it. So I think it was just a regular dog. The dog's supposed to represent Wilzig's humanity and how he actually
But he
cares about
labeled it.
creatures. I mean, when
And
it
they
was
were
born a
like doing
puppy,
tests on the dog too.
before, not on the CX404, he just had him doing the running
Yeah.
because dogs need to run, and so he had to put him on the treadmill so he's not going outside.
He was trying to train him.
He did try and
He
train
was
him.
they had him on a platform and he like took him from another scientist when he was like an older puppy.
I don't know. I think the only people that would care is the Enclave, and the Brotherhood doesn't care because they're just trying to take the head. They feel that that's more
Yeah.
important. So I don't think anybody really is like, no
I
one's
don't
worried
know.
about the dog.
I low-key feel like there is some significance to the dog that we're kind of just overlooking, but
Maybe they'll put something in
It's
there.
the dog. It's dog meat.
Whole show turns around the dog.
Yeah,
important.
he's the key, the crux of the entire show. And Thaddeus just leaves him. And leaving Thaddeus, we're back into Vault 4. And this time we're in the atrium, and there's a huge crowd around. There's like a stand, and they got Lucy on there. She's tied up. She's on her knees, like with her hands over a board. They're going to sentence her, right? Because she's caused all this violence. The Vault 4s are all kind of excited. Birdie starts getting the crowd going. She's like, we're all survivors here. Lucky to enough to found a place of peace, of tolerance. Lucy's like trying to nod her restraints because like she's like, they're going to kill me. I need to get out of here. You guys deserve safety. And the crowd's like, yeah. Right? They're like, they want peace, right? Then Birdie turns to Lucy and she looks at her and she's like, you threaten our peace. And Benjamin steps up to the platform. He picks up that scimitar. Right? A curved sword. And he stands before Lucy with the blade raised. He's like, for causing harm to a fellow survivor, you are hereby sentenced to death. And Lucy's all like, oh no, like whimpers and kind of turns away in fear, like he's going to cut her head off. And he goes, by banishment to the surface. And her eyes are closed. And she's like, what? And she looks forward and he's just like slow sawing at the rope to try and cut it off of her hand. He's like, and it's kind of like this,
like squeaky.
yeah, it's like,
It's
it's like this awkward silence. And Benjamin's like, it's almost there. Don't worry. Like, I'm working on it. And then finally it like breaks. And Benjamin's like,
it doesn't break yet. No, he like gives up and hands the scimitar to Birdie. And he's like, I need to get that sharpened, please.
wait, I thought it broke and then he did that.
No.
No, it doesn't.
Then he goes to like, he grabs it with his bare hands and he like pulls really hard. And then they finally break and he puts his hands up and all the crowd like cheers for him. And there's triumphant music.
That's even better than, I thought he just cut it and then handed that and was like, you need to sharpen this. No, he legitimately was like pulled at him and like rips it. Like he's a champion or whatever. And Lucy's just stunned, right? She's just like, you're just letting me go? And he's like, well, that's certainly an optimistic perspective. You'll be killed almost immediately on the surface. Okay. Pretty scared of the surface.
Like they haven't just came.
And this is actually great. And he's like, so that's why we're giving you 2 weeks of supplies to take with you, right? This is the nicest banishment and sentence to death that we've
I
ever
wish
seen.
they did that in the game, wasn't they kick you out of the vault?
Right, just the nicest people ever. Here you go. Here's a bunch of supplies. Here's all these stim packs. You can't come back. Good luck surviving. But Benjamin even calls her Goosey again. He says, after that, you're on your own, Goosey. Lucy's weirded out because these people have been so nice to her. And she kind of takes off her restraints. And he's like, okay, you got to be moving along then. Lucy asks her one more question. She says, like, hey, listen, I know I screwed up, but like my friend really likes it here and he's a good person from the surface. He deserves to be somewhere nice and safe. And it kind of shows Max in the reactor room. And then she goes, can he stay? And that's when the power drops out. The PA starts and it goes, power backup initiated or whatever. It starts cutting back and forth here and it cuts to Max. And he's got his power armor and he's marching down the hallway. The vault dwellers are falling over the banister as Max rounds the corner because they're like, oh crap, like he comes marching out. He's taking their fusion core. He's in the power armor. He's like, you need to let her go. And then he starts grabbing people and throwing them and he's hitting stuff. He flips the popcorn table. He's picking up a Nuka-Cola vending machine. He's just hucking it across the place. They're doing some slow motion scenes, which, remember, they did slow motion before, and we were kind of saying that it was too much. Honestly, I haven't really noticed it as much anymore.
No. It was really just that first episode that there was a ton of
Well, and
slow-mo.
then now here, which actually works, right? Because it's funny. They're playing
Yeah.
like the only, right? The music in the background. He's just chucking stuff all over the place.
And then the vending machine lands on all of their supplies. It's like,
Yeah.
there was 2 weeks of
2 weeks of
supplies.
supplies just destroyed. And Lucy's like, Max, no. Or she says, she doesn't know he's Max, right? She said, Titus, stop, stop, stop. They're letting me go. And Max is like, wait, really? And like gets him to calm down. Lucy's like, yeah. And Max is kind of staring at her in the power armor and he goes, oops. And then he raises his hands. He's like, sorry, guys. Sorry. After he's just tossed everyone all over the place, he's like, and he points to one of the guys that's on the ground. He's like, somebody maybe check on him. He doesn't look too good. The guy's all hurt. Max just comes storming in because he thinks he's rescuing Lucy, destroys their entire thing, destroys their supplies, hurts people, flips the popcorn table, terrorizes the vault. And Lucy's like, chill out. And he's like, oh, okay.
My bad, G. My bad.
My bad.
It's a great scene.
Probably one of the best scenes in the whole thing. Super funny. Good interactions between Lucy and Max. You're starting to see how influential Lucy is over him too. Max doesn't seem to want to be a bad person or a mean person. He just kind of goes. What happens, right? The meanest thing he did is he just let Knight Titus die, and then he stomped on Thaddeus's foot and was like gonna kill him. But otherwise, Max usually chooses like the right thing to do. He's pretty even.
I don't even think he really
I don't
wanted.
think he intentionally stepped on Thaddeus's foot because, like, Thaddeus was like trying to crawl around him, and he was like stumbling around, and it seems to me like Max accidentally stepped on Thaddeus's foot.
It seemed to me like Maximus was trying to kill Thaddeus during that scene.
He definitely was trying to
Yes.
kill him.
I don't.
But
I would not classify as a
He
good
for sure, but it didn't seem totally intentional.
choice.
he should have just not taken his foot off of Thaddeus's foot, but he probably felt bad and like lifted his foot. You know what I mean? So I don't think he's got
Yeah.
the conviction to be a killer, but
I
we
don't
don't know.
think he intentionally tries to do anything bad because even with Titus, I don't think he was even intentionally trying to have him die. But what the circumstances led to was like, they're gonna kill you and all that. And it's like, well, I thought
Yeah.
the Brotherhood was a lot better than that, and you guys just kind of are a bad example.
Yeah, because he was rescued by the Brotherhood when he was a kid.
You give the Brotherhood a bad
No.
name.
Yeah, a bad name. But pretty funny scene. Pretty good. Terrorize the vault. And that's kind of where that one ends. It does continue with their story into the next scene, though. It flashes to Lucy and Max in an elevator because now they're leaving. Lucy's sitting there with her arms folded, and Max is kind of like, drumming the fingers. You know how you're waiting for something and you like just kind of like tapping? He's doing that, but in the power armor. So he's like looking all casual. Once they get out there in the wasteland, Lucy stops and turns and looks at Max. Max actually raises his visor and he goes, like, what? What's going on? And Lucy's like, well, we stole their fusion core. And Max is like, well, yeah, but I need it for my armor. And Lucy's like, well, they're just on auxiliary power, so they'll only last a few days. And then what? Max is like, hold on. No. Why are we going this way? And Lucy's like, yup. Max is like, no, I'm not. I don't want to do that. And Lucy's like, listen, giving back the fusion core is the right thing to do. And Max is like, but my armor won't work. I can't be a knight if I don't have my armor. And Lucy's like, well, you can't be a knight by stealing from people either. He's like, yeah, but I can help a bunch of people with the armor. And Lucy kind of gives him a look.
When you say it that way, it makes me think of like power armor. It's like, I can't fight without my toys, and they need batteries.
Well, he's trying anything, right? He's trying anything at this point. So he's like, well, if I can't do that, then I can't use it. And then he's like, if I give the fusion core back, I can't help your dad.
It's my batteries. I need my batteries for my
Right, this is
controller.
my fusion core. I need to play my game. And Lucy's finally kind of says, listen, if my dad found out that I destroyed an entire community just to save him, that'd break his heart. And Max is like, he's got nothing else, right? And Lucy's like, I can't. Max closes his visor and power downs the armor and gets out. He closes it up and removes the fusion core. She's convinced him, right? And I think this is a good place for Lucy and Max because Lucy's really seeming to influence Max's moral compass. He wants to do things for her because she's nice to him. The Brotherhood did help him, but they've never really been nice to him. So, Lucy being nice to him kind of makes him be like, okay, I'll do stuff for her. He likes her, right? He's scared.
She's like a new level of nice that he's never seen before.
Well, he's offered to sleep with her. They've, right?
Oh, yeah.
He went back and forth on that already. So there's obviously something going on. It flashes then to the inside of Vault 4 as they got out of the power armor and he took the fusion core out. And the fusion core actually tumbles into that chute where they had gotten caught before, which I guess they kind of keep that chute opened, right? And obviously a woman grabs it and says, "Thank you." And it's like Max and Lucy had dropped the fusion core back down there. But like thinking about this, they're letting people drop in and then they try and help them and everything, but maybe they should go about it differently? Or do they only do it for people that are looking for aid? I guess it still makes sense, right? Because they're going to the hospital looking for aid and then they fall down there. They shouldn't be as threatening as, say if they put out a sign out in front of Vault 4 that said like, "Hey, you done with the wasteland and want to be peaceful?"
Need a shelter?
Yeah, I don't think they don't want to advertise that they're there.
But they also test
I
on
don't
people.
know.
Plus, I think once they fall down, do they get gassed? I can't remember.
Yeah, because they enter the little cove where that fake door was, the alarms start going off and like gas starts pouring in. But it takes a second for them to be like knocked out, I think, because Max screams on his way down.
Who knows?
Mm.
I mean, it didn't look like there was much cushion down there either for when you landed, so it's kind of like comical. But yeah, Max is like peering down there, and Lucy's like, "Are you thinking about those oysters?" And Max is like, "Yeah." He smiles, and they begin walking towards the exit in the hospital. She says, "We don't have oysters in my vault. We got canned tuna, but if you like oysters, I'm pretty sure you'd like canned tuna." And he's like, "Yeah," he's not catching on. And she's all like, "I was supposed to marry a stranger from another vault." He's like, "Wait a second, what?" And he turns around, and she's like, "It didn't turn out so good." She's like, "I don't have the best luck when it comes to strangers. I can honestly say you're the best stranger that I've ever met. You're a good person. And if you want to, when this is all over, you could come live with us in the vault with me." He shifts a little uncomfortable and he's like, he kind of looks guilty, right? Like because she thinks he's Titus, right? Lucy even says it. She says, "Titus, I can honestly say you are the best stranger that I've ever met," and says he's honest. And she's calling him by not his name. And so he feels guilty and he's like, "Hey, I gotta tell you something." She's like, "Just say yes." And he's like, "Listen, my name's not Titus, it's Maximus. Titus is the name of the knight who owned the suit before me. He was threatening me, so instead of helping him, I basically just watched him die." Right? His guilt. He's finally laying out his guilt. And this is where it finally confirms that he didn't shoot him, at least if he's not lying here. But it doesn't seem like he is. It seems like this is
Well, now
genuine.
he's spilling out the truth, so it's like,
Right?
why lie now?
Right? There's no
For
point. He
how
likes
many
Lucy.
episodes?
Right? And he feels good around Lucy. Things happen right around Lucy. He feels like he can protect her. He feels like they're together, right? And he's like, "So I lied to you. I took the armor, all that stuff you were saying about me being a good person." And he kind of trails off. And Lucy says, like, "Hey, I just threw acid in an innocent man's face, and I've only been up here 2 weeks." She's like, "The wasteland sucks."
It's like she's saying that, like, look, I've only been up here 2 weeks and I've done some things I'm not proud of, so I can't judge you for anything that you've done to survive.
Right?
And that seems to like console him a
Right.
bit.
Well, and she said, "The wasteland sucks," which is nothing's, that is the truth. The wasteland blows. And Max even says, like, "Yeah, sometimes." And that's when Lucy's like, "Do you want to come live with me in my vault?" So she still asks him, right? He admits his guilt. He admits like he's not Titus and everything. And so she's accepted him. And, even it recognizes that the wasteland is such a terrible place that you do terrible
How
things.
dare you have flaws?
Right. And that's when Max says, "Yes, yes, of course, I want to live with you in your vault." And it's nice. This is like one of the nicest moments, I would say, in the entire show. Because they kind of like smile at each other and they like, then they walk out together and they exit the laboratory. And that's kind of where this scene ends. But it's like, it starts with them doing something good for other people. Like, of course, they caused the problem. They're like, "Hey, let's recognize this is a problem. We need to give it back." She convinces Maximus to give it back. Maximus gives it back. He feels guilty, right? Because they just did good things and she's calling him a good person. She's saying, "I want you to live in my vault with me." She's kind of got a crush on him. He's got a crush on her, kind of deal. And he comes clean. We finally get closure on like he didn't, we didn't see it off screen or anything. He didn't shoot Titus in the head. He just kind of let him die. So that bear must have messed Titus up, like broken insides or something.
Like internal bleeding or something like that.
Something, right? Because he didn't live very long.
Blunt force trauma, maybe.
Exactly. But yeah, that's like one of the nicest moments I would say in the entire show. And I like how they're doing this romance. It's not too fast. And she's kind of like goofy about it all, right? When she's like, "Would you like to have intercourse?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, just It's just a wacky love story, but it works, and I like the characters, and they've got good chemistry so far. So
Do you want to come
Yeah.
live with me at my vault?
yeah, you want to come live with me in my vault? You want to come to my house? But yeah, a nice moment in the Fallout universe when everything else seems so terrible. And we're back with Thaddeus, and we're kind of listening to the radio that he's listening to because he's trying to find a station to find a radio station so he can contact the Brotherhood. It's something about some fiddling music, right? So like it reminds me of the Brotherhood station over in the Commonwealth. That's kind of the music he's listening to, so it's kind of a nice callback to Fallout 4 and the Minutemen and everything there and their radio.
I think it's even listed because of the Amazon thing as what is it, the Freedom
Radio or something?
Yeah.
It was KPSS.
Yeah, it was KPSS. DJ Carl on KPSS giving the spiel about the fiddling music.
No, but I'm talking about if you look up the song that's playing at that time, I'm pretty sure they listed as Radio Freedom
I
from
see what you're saying.
Fallout 4. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's directly from Fallout 4, like the music that they're listening to. But yeah, he's limping across like this. It just basically looks like flat desert land, and there's a kind of, it feels like there's a path there.
There is. There's like some railroad tracks.
Yeah, there's like some railroad tracks he's walking on. There's a couple houses around it. And near one of the houses is our good old snake oil salesman, the chicken fucker himself. And he's over there standing behind a house, and he's got a barrel of a rifle in his mouth, and he's
He's trying to blow his brains out.
he's trying to blow his brains out. This guy's like always doing something weird and wacky. Like, what are you doing? And he's trying to use his toes to like pull the trigger or something, but then he sees Thaddeus. And he stops. He doesn't kill himself. He's like, oh, okay, someone's there. And so he puts down the rifle, packs up all his crap, and then runs after Thaddeus.
It's because he
And
sees him limping over there. And he's like, I'm going to try to sell it to him.
Right, exactly. He's like, oh, another sale.
If he was like ready to kill himself, then why does it matter if he's like at the end of his rope?
Well, maybe one more time. One more
Yeah,
sale.
Yeah, why not? One
I
more
guess,
sale. Like, what's
like-
going on? Maybe this one will be the big one.
It's not like he doesn't still have like inventory to be able to sell.
Listen, he was just
Everybody around there knows him as the chicken fucker, so they
Yeah,
probably don't want to
right.
buy anything from him.
right,
But this is a new guy.
He's burned a lot of bridges. He's lied to a lot of people. He's just doing what he's doing or whatever. And
Yeah.
in the wasteland, it's like, what? I either blow my brains out or I get eaten by something or killed by somebody else or, turned into a ghoul.
Either I blow my brains out or somebody else does it, for me.
And blows my brains out.
Whatever it could be. But something distracts him. It's Thaddeus, and Thaddeus is limping, and he's like, why not? I can sell this guy on some crap. So he runs up and he says, excuse me, and Thaddeus immediately goes, ah! Like, he's like scared of him when he runs up on him. Because obviously the chicken guy is ugly, and he's all like gross and messy and, a wastelander. And the salesman's immediately like, whoa, hold on, don't kill me. I'm a doctor. I can help you. Like, this will be fine. He's like, okay, right? Because obviously Thaddeus is in a lot of pain at this point. We saw his foot. And so he goes with the doctor, and the salesman's like, haven't seen many people traveling around here with a human head. It seems like he probably knows about the head too. Maybe? It
Yeah.
feels like a lot of people in the wasteland know
I
about
mean-
the head. I mean, they did put out bounties and stuff.
Or maybe just like he doesn't know about the bounty, but he's just like, that's suspicious. Somebody's like traveling around with a head.
I don't know about
So maybe he's just taking
Yeah.
note of that for
later,
later.
possibly.
And I don't know.
Yeah. He does seem the type to like sell anything, sell information, whatever.
Yeah.
What's funny is Thaddeus is like, no, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. It's like a souvenir of a kind of thing. like, what? Why do you have a head as a souvenir? And the he's like, oh yeah, that's well, welcome to my humble pharmacy. Have a seat, and let's take a look at that tattered tootsie of yours. And he's talking about his foot. And Thaddeus grunts as he's pulling his boot and the sock off, and it still looks so nasty, and the toes like hanging. What do you guys think of the CGI here? Because it was obvious that the foot was CGI.
I mean, it looked good.
It looked disgusting.
Like nasty
So
good.
yeah.
The toe was so
But-
dangly.
And I mean, it's not like every stomped, mangled foot is going to look the same.
Oh no.
So,
You don't say.
yeah.
Uh,
Be a little jarring if they all did.
As far as like realistic, I don't know. I've never seen a stomped foot that bad. The CGI wasn't terrible,
Mhm.
is what I'm getting at.
I thought it looked okay, but it definitely, you could tell it was CGI more than anything else. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Whereas the time you saw the foot before, it looked okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad they led the cartoonish. It's like slightly cartoony with like the toe flopping over. Made it
Yeah.
a little bit kind of
easier to look at.
not as grisly.
Like more comic.
Yeah, the first time
like.
you saw it, it looked real, and
Yeah.
that was ugh. But the second time you see
It's
it,
like something you wanted to look away from.
yeah, you don't want to look at it. It looked gross. But yeah, the salesman, as soon as he sees the foot, goes, "I've seen this condition before." And Thaddeus is like, "Yeah, someone stepped on my foot," and the salesman's like, "Yes, sometimes fatal." Like, what do you mean?
You
But you're in
don't
luck.
say.
He's like, "I've got the cure," and of course he starts in. He's like looking at various bottles on a shelf and stuff. Which this isn't the guy's house, so he's just rifling through bottles on the wall. Like it's not like he actually is pulling it out of his bag. He's like, "I've got potions and serums for every malady and misfortune."
That area he's doing it reminds me of a lot. That's the thing with this place. It's like every place looks so similar. I'm like, that kind of looks like the place that the ghoul was talking with
Roger.
Rod. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely and then where she went, where Lucy went in the first place and saw the family that had like drunk the poison and like
Yeah, it seems like that same
no, they're
area.
definitely using like there's some town out in freaking Africa where they filmed it that's just like super sandy and like abandoned buildings and it was perfect, right? So they used it a bunch, which I'm fine with. Like I get it. Like this thing probably cost a ton of money. Everything looks really good. You used a set piece multiple times. I'm okay with that. But it does seem like they keep going to the same place. So you're like, for Fallout fans, we're trying to put the map, on our head the entire time, and so trying to figure that out.
It's like, where are you going?
But yeah, he seems the salesman's like familiar with the place or something because he's looking through all these. But I don't think he is. I think he's just bullshitting, and he's just like looking through bottles and stuff because he's selling him nothing. And so this is when, so while he's doing that, actually, Thaddeus pulls a gun on him. What's to stop me from just killing you and taking all your medicines and stuff? And the salesman's like, well, you see, the thing is, you don't know my medicines. It could kill you or it could heal you, and you'll never know. You'll just have to guess. So you need me to know, right? He's selling himself. And Thaddeus is convinced by that. He even says, like, you may drink something and then your intestines falling out. So he's like, which one is it? And Thaddeus is like, fine, okay, just give me the right one. And of course, the salesman, he's like, okay, there's a matter of my fee, though. What are you going to pay me? And Thaddeus just doesn't have any caps, doesn't have his bag anymore, doesn't have anything. The only thing he does have is his fusion core. Crazy trade by Thaddeus. I wouldn't see this coming, but I knew this fusion core was going to move around because it needs to get back to Maximus and his armor. So
Right.
weird. Thaddeus pulls out the fusion core. The salesman's like, wow, you don't see those as much anymore. Like, not a bad trade if you want to survive. Like, I'll definitely take that. And Thaddeus is like reluctant, but he's looking at his foot, man. And he's like, I'll take anything at this point. Like, here's the fusion core. Let's fix this. And the salesman's like, perfect. And he chucks both the things that he was holding before, which is hilarious. And then he goes to his case, opens it up. I like how they do this filming. It gives you that impression of like the salesman that's got his case that he opens and it pops open with multiple drawers and multiple things and it folds out. And they do it like a little bit fast forwarded. Cool style
Or like
choice.
more quickly cut scenes.
Yeah, like
yeah, it's
chink, chink,
cool.
chink. Right? And he pulls out this yellow fluid in an inhaler. And he turns to Thaddeus and he's like, this one I have concocted heals all, and I mean everything. But doesn't taste that great. And Thaddeus is like, fine, just give it to me. And salesman's like, okay, and gives it to him. And Thaddeus takes the hit and then immediately starts gagging and hacking. And the salesman starts giggling about it. It's kind of
And I just say at this
cackling.
point, I was convinced that it was the salesman's piss.
Me
in a
too.
vial.
Right?
Same.
That's what I thought. I was like, he just made him snort piss in a vial, like
Yeah, something's piss, right?
something,
Like,
right? But then the salesman's like, but the results, look at the results. And we look at the foot, and the foot heals. It kind of smooths over, scars over. It doesn't heal perfectly, but it heals. And like the toe's all wonky still. Thaddeus is like, yo, thanks. Like, you fixed my foot. And he did, right? The foot fixes, whatever he took, did the job. It wasn't a stim pack. It wasn't anything else. I don't know what it is.
You know,
but-
he was almost as surprised as Thaddeus was.
yeah, right? Like he's like, oh, it worked. And he like was kind of watching, like excited to see what would happen. Like, I don't know. It's some weird ass serum.
Homie is probably an alchemist, like in the same sense of we are in Skyrim. It's like just start throwing things together, it'll
Put 'em
work.
together. And it works. So just as surprised, and the salesman quickly closes up his case. And it's funny because Thaddeus says, I think the salesman's got to know what it is. He seems a little sus about it because Thaddeus is like, thank you, it's so great. And the salesman's like, yeah, sure thing, buddy boy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it almost seems like he knows something. Thaddeus is like, yo, where's that radio tower? I got to make a contact with my base. The salesman's like, yeah, it's yonward past the big crater in the middle of the shithole. Great directions, right? Thaddeus seems to have heard of Shady Sands because he says, like, that place is radioactive. And that's when the salesman says, well, you don't have to worry about that anymore, do ya, buddy boy? And the salesman slaps him on the shoulder and says, toodles and anon, and then runs off. We just kind of end that scene with a confused Thaddeus sitting there with his new foot.
And the salesman just seems further sus.
Super sus. Do you think the salesman's going to go blow his brains out now that he's got the fusion core?
No.
Nice.
Nah, he's got hope.
He's gonna go buy himself a whole like flock of chickens.
He's gonna have a good time.
I think it'd be funny is if the next time we see him, he's trying to kill himself again and gets distracted. So like it's just this running joke that the salesman's just done, but people keep giving him hope or something. I don't know. Could be interesting. I don't think that's the last time we're seeing him though. He's got the fusion core, so I think he's coming back. We are back to Vault 33 with Norm. He's just kind of doing his same job. They're playing What a Difference a Day Makes song, and they're sliding the door open. He's feeding the prisoners the food. Almost like the monotony of what they're doing, right? And it's only like
Just like meal after meal after meal.
yeah, which is interesting. This is still the same day though, right? So it's maybe like breakfast, lunch, dinner that they're showing him give to them like a day later? Or do you think it's a couple days? Like what's the
I think when they're showing him like doing it meal after meal, it could be multiple days, but what ensues afterwards is all within the same day.
Yeah, so he delivers food one day. We hear Reg over the PA system, and he's saying, like, in preparation for repopulating Vault 32, Oversee Betty will be sending out Vault assignments later today. Remember, wherever you end up, that's where you belong. And Norm's still doing the slot. So that we kind of hear that over the top of him feeding them. And then he's bringing the food cart down again, and as he passes, there's a guy on a gurney being rushed out. He walks down the hall, the door's open to where the raiders are, and all the raiders are dead. And it looks like they just had died suddenly. Betty and Woody are in there, and Norm's like, what happened? And Betty's like, we don't know. The medic says it was like rat poison. We'll find out who's behind it. And that's kind of interesting because the person that's been feeding them, right, is Norm. So did Norm poison them, or did Betty poison them?
I don't think Norm did it.
It would be whoever's preparing the food, and seeing as the food probably gets prepared somewhere else, Norm just delivers it and gives it to the.
Well, and the raiders wouldn't know what rat poison was or looks like, right?
I don't think they would just eat it off the floor.
I feel like
if
this
that's
is
what you're suggesting.
this
Nom
is
nom nom
leverage
nom.
against
Nom,
Norm.
nom, nom, nom.
I would say the
Yeah.
same thing, but they don't grab Norm and start interrogating him, right? Instead, they grab Veronica, who is the guard to all the guys, and they start dragging her off.
I think Betty's trying to send a message.
Oh, I straight up think Betty's
Yeah.
sending a message too. I think
Yeah.
you're right. I think Betty has orchestrated this whole thing. Veronica's the fall guy, and she's threatening Norm. I don't know why she doesn't just get rid of Norm, but maybe it has to do with, you know, the original overseer, Norm's dad, and like maybe there's something there, but I don't know.
Manipulate him.
Oh, this is the big part, right? This is where Betty walks towards him. She leans down and whispers, "What did I tell you, Norman? Words have meaning." I think this is all part of the vault thing. This is the experiment. I think what they're doing here is they've got two vaults. They're trying to make them as good as possible. And if they live good and they're good people and they're nice to each other, all their words are nice to each other, everything they say and do is nice to each other, then the vaults stay alive and they're good, right? And nothing happens. However, I think the idea is Vault 31 is listening to them the entire time. And if you ever have somebody that ends up being like a malcontent or saying things to go the other way, kind of like how Norm said at the meeting, you know, we should just kill them off, all of a sudden Vault 31 makes it happen. I think Vault 32 figured that out, and that's why they freaked out, and they're like, management's lying to us, they're controlling us, and like changing what happens. And, you know, we're all going to die, and guess what? They all die. So I don't know how much the influence is there, but it definitely, that's kind of my theory of what the experiment for 31, 32, and 33 is. What do you guys think?
Sounds plausible.
I mean, It's possible. That'd be a weird experiment.
There's definitely some shady experiment going on.
I mean, this is the only hint I feel we've gotten. Words have meaning.
Plus, to me, Betty's a lot older than a lot of the others. So she knows a lot more than anybody probably even does by a long shot.
And I mean, they instilled the whole saying, right? You know, when things look glum, vote for somebody from Vault 31. They're kind of built on their sayings and their like how you're supposed to be and
No one else will help us fix our problem.
right? And to always trust 31, you know, and that's kind of the
Put your faith in someone else, kind of like how we put our faith in Vault-Tec.
They just get rid of people that say bad things.
no, because they didn't get rid of Norm, right? They're supposed to be a perfect society. So if anything throws a wrench in that, if somebody all of a sudden says like we should just kill people, they'll make it happen. Norm says I want the Raiders dead. Lo and behold, Raiders die.
Makes you wonder if somebody like said something about the water chip
Right?
and then it broke.
Which we haven't really kind of revisited that, so I think that's kind of interesting. They talked about they only have a couple weeks left of water, and I guess they're splitting, so it'll kind of even it out, and it's the solution. But like the water chip's still going to go out, so don't know what they're really doing about that.
Yeah, that seems like that should be a bigger deal.
Maybe if they get that vault working properly again, they can start like using it to help supply them with water.
Something.
They just need people over there to maintain it.
Well, why not just take Vault 32's chip? So like, it's weird. They need to like have both of them happen.
I think it's a shared water chip, and that's just being overlooked. I think all three vaults share one water chip.
I don't think so because Vault 31 wouldn't do that, right? Like they'd have their own stuff. So maybe 32
Are
and
you
33.
sure about that?
Yeah, because they talk about how 31's way more well supplied than the other two vaults.
Well, also they talk about how the vaults are separated. Like this is the tail, but the vaults are separated in case something happens to one, then the other two would be okay. So it wouldn't make sense for them to share a water chip.
Yeah, they probably have.
Yeah.
They probably have separate water chips then. But yeah, they really haven't really visited that.
They could also be just like let the management take care of it. Like the average vault citizen doesn't need to worry about, you know, these things. So we're just kind of brushing it under the rug for you guys,
Mhm.
but we actually are dealing with it behind the doors.
True, we're very much Norm's perspective, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what's happening. You know, these guys died. We're kind of reacting to everything. So that's when Woody says, people are going to be upset when they hear about this. And Betty's like, whatever. People just want to fuss about stuff. She's like, so a little bit of drama and like eliminating a problem actually is going to work out for us. And that matter of factness by Betty is kind of like, yeah, she's behind this. Like she's probably the one that poisoned them and made sure
It's like
they died.
she had that answer ready.
Exactly. You also wonder how much the security force is like 31. Like, what if most of those guys are from 31, so they know what's going on, right? Like, they don't dive into that, but
Interesting.
if 31's got a stranglehold, that would be the perfect positions to have them in the leadership. So, and the enforcement. Betty enters the hallway. She like leaves them, looks at her Pip-Boy, and then hits some buttons, and it says Vault Assignment Initiate, and she selects the Initiate, and then sends repopulating assignments. And I actually really liked how they did this scene because they basically go around and everybody's like looking at their Pip-Boy. And for the viewer, us, they like get a digital pop-up like above the Pip-Boy.
Like a holographic.
Yeah, like a holographic that says like, congratulations, staying in Vault 33, Vault 32, whatever it is. It's kind of cool. You see it pop up on each of the people. So they're showing everybody get a sign.
Catches them in the middle of their
Yeah,
day,
doing
like
something.
doing whatever random thing they're
So
doing.
right there, Norm was just standing there, so he gets his, and he's staying in Vault 33. And then it goes to Woody, and Woody gets one for 32, and he is not happy. He's
He's
like,
like,
oh no.
oh,
Yeah, he doesn't want to be go. And then it goes to Davey, the guy who keeps teasing people about who he voted for, and he's got the mustache, and he's ironing his clothes, and he gets Vault 32, and he's like, yes! He's all excited. And then it goes to Reg, who was the other guy that ran for overseer. And he's actually on the toilet, like pooping or whatever. And he gets Vault 33, and he leans back and he's like, oh, thank goodness. All right, so Woody has to go. Reg stays. And then it shows Steph and Chet. And Steph and Chet both get Vault 32. This was actually funny because Steph was stuffing an ice pack down her pants, and she gets assigned 32, and she's happy. Chet's actually holding the baby, and he kind of looks up slowly, like, "Oh, I guess I got assigned to 32." Is it just me, or is Chet just like? I feel like Chet's given up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I've just gotten shit on and shitting on
He
and
just got
shitting on.
taken over by Steph, right? Like Steph's just like, you're mine.
Yeah, as soon as she walked in, and yeah.
This is my life now, I guess.
It's like, here's Bert's shoes, step into them.
And I know what that's like.
Well, he said he didn't know who he was anymore after he lost his gatekeeping duties, so this is just kind of wherever life takes him.
I don't even know who I am.
He's having an identity crisis.
He's just adrift. Norm immediately goes to visit Chet, and he's knocking on the door. And actually, Steph answers, "Go, hi, Norm. Oh, isn't it terrible about the Raiders?" Like, just casual conversation, like Betty
And she's
said.
smiling?
Yeah.
She's smiling. And then also, how did she hear about it so quick?
Oh, I mean, news goes around the vault. Like, I don't know. That's true.
It's
'Cause he
almost
just
like she
came from
knew it
it.
was going to happen. Because if that is the experiment, she would know the experiment and be like, oh, Norm's been saying, like, we should kill the Raiders. And then it happened. She was expecting
Well,
it?
she was saying they should kill the Raiders, right? 'Cause didn't she go after Norm said that?
Yeah, she was agreeing with them. She was mad about them killing her husband, so she was down. She was down to kill the Raiders. So she's pumped, right? She's happy. So she says the right thing, like, "Oh, isn't it just terrible?" But obviously doesn't mean it. She says, "Don't be too long. I'm holding the baby, so you have to pack everything, Chet." And Chet's like, "Okay, okay." Steph's like, "We'll miss you, Norm," and then walks away. And Norm's like, "Okay, so you're going?" And Chet's like, "Yeah, I guess I'm gonna go. We got a starter home unit, just the three of us, me, Steph, and the kid." And Norm's like, "So you're just gonna forget about everything we've seen?" And Chet's like, "I feel like this is a good moment for a fresh start." And Norm's kind of accusatory. He's like, "You think so?" And Chet says, "Someone obviously does." And Steph's looking like, she's still in the background, like waiting. Norm actually says, "You're a coward, Chet. You know that?" Right to his face, which is kind of like,
Bam.
kind of mean, right? Just like, "You're a coward. You know that, Chet?" And Chet actually gets back at him. This is pretty solid. He says, "We all are, Norm. That's why we live in a vault." And it was like, damn, just like said, Chet's basically like, "Screw you. I'm just trying to survive." This is probably the most stern we've seen Chet, because he's kind of been being walked over and kind of looked lost. But like, this is the first time where he's like, basically like, "Screw you, Norm. I'm going. And I'm going to just move on from this so I don't have to deal with it." Sighs and closes the door on Norm. And kind of sad. Our duo of Chet and Norm are breaking up, and it's because they got to move to the other vault. And I think Betty did it 100% on purpose, because she knew that those two were gonna stumble into some dumb crap that they shouldn't stumble into. And I think she bet that Chet would just be, whatever, and want to move on if she separated them, and that Norm is definitely the instigator. So
He's alone now. He doesn't have anybody else to, like, his little army.
his sister's gone, his friend's gone.
Yeah.
Steph,
His dad's
yeah, his
gone.
dad's gone. Steph's the only one that kind of agreed with him before. She's gone, and she's from Vault 31, so we don't trust her.
And nobody else is, like, competent enough to, like, see through the bullshit.
Yeah, so the breakup of a duo. Moving back to the ghoul, which we hadn't been with for a minute. And the ghoul is actually tracking Thaddeus. He's looking for the head, and he's finding a bloody trail. And he makes it to the Red Rocket station. He examines his surroundings. He's doing his tracking thing. He stops parallel to the car because he sees where, like, Thaddeus sat for a second and pulled off the sock and bled all over the place.
He, like, sticks his finger in it, and then he, like, licks it, and it's, like, moving it between his fingers. And then he hears, like, noises coming from the fridge, and that's when he, like, looks over.
Is it a fridge or is it a trash can that he was hearing the noises from?
It was the Nuka-Cola fridge.
That Thaddeus put the dog in.
It's the one that looks like a freezer
Oh, okay.
with the slide top.
Yeah, so it's a wide one.
Sorry, I guess I have to think back to the Fallout 3 Nuka-Cola fridge when you meet Sierra, whatever her last name is, for the very first time, instead of like the vending machines you see throughout every game.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
Yeah, it's more of like a chest fridge where you, like, open it up, like, from the top.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so like a deep freezer.
It's pretty spacious.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was a dumpster the first time, so I'm like, that kind of makes sense to put a dog in a dumpster,
Similar shape, I guess.
But yeah, so Ghoul moves over and he opens it up and he sees the dog and he pets the dog and he says, "All right, let's go find your daddy," because he knows that the dog's looking for it. So now he doesn't even have to do the tracking. The dog's going to do it for him.
And he's, like, frustrated that the dog has been
Treated that way.
poorly.
Yeah.
He likes dogs.
Yep.
So
And he picks the dog out of the fridge, and they continue on. And this is where we get a flashback before he was the ghoul, before the bombs drop, and we get back to when he was Cooper. And he's sitting in his living room, and he's smoking a pipe, sitting there with his dog Roosevelt next to him. So his dog, right? He looks up, and he sees that Barb has left her Pip-Boy on the counter, and she's not there. He pulls the listening device out of his pocket. As you can tell, he's torn inside. He's thinking, do I do this? Do I not trust my wife? And he actually goes over and grabs the Pip-Boy, and he's holding the listening device. And you see the Pip-Boy screen. It goes, and it has a loading thing. And he connects the listening device. And then he puts it in his ear, and he steps away, and he puts the Pip-Boy down just as Barb is entering the room with a tray of hot cocoa. And she's like, I got 3 hot cocos on the deck, 2 marshmallows, 1 plain. Cooper's like, oh, you got one for me? And she's like, yeah. And she actually picks up her Pip-Boy and puts it on her wrist. She kind of seems a little suspicious, but it's probably because she's just, paranoid all the time for what she's doing.
and attached to the device.
Right.
I don't
She's really attached to
know.
it from what we've seen.
I low-key feel like she somehow knew, and this is just, once again, this is just my impressions of when I was watching it. I feel like she kind of knew that it had been tampered with, but she didn't want to outright say anything.
She did seem suspicious, right? She was kind of suspicious of Cooper, and he kind of plays it off. He's like, I'll be out there in a second. And she goes out. And while she's out there, Cooper's listening in the earpiece, and he actually hears their whole conversation. He hears the got your hot chocolate, sweet pea. If you like, you can have marshmallows, blah, 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 blah. Janie's like, where's Daddy? And she's like, he'll be out in a minute. What have you got there, a puppy? And that's when Roosevelt whimpers. I love how much they put Roosevelt in it, because the dog is man's best friend kind of deal. Cooper's like, you know what? You're right, Roosevelt. What am I thinking? And he takes the device from his ear, and he hesitates for a second, and he tosses it into the trash can, and then goes on. So he kind of was like, I faced my temptation, and I got it synced, and I was listening, and then he hears the wholesome family part of his life, and he's like, I'm being a piece of crap, and throws it away. But then it flashes to later that night. Barb's asleep, and he's watching TV, and he sees the ad that he does for Vault 4, where he talks about the scientists, and he's like, I may play a hero in the movies, but you're all heroes in real life. He kind of looks disgusted almost, and he turns off the TV, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he looks at Barb, and you kind of see he's thinking in his head, and he's trying to figure out what he should do. He goes to the next scene, and he's digging through the trash in the middle of the night, and he's trying to find that listening device. He says even here, he says, no dogs in the vault, huh? He's kind of bitter about the dog thing still. Obviously, the dogs thing was the huge catalyst for him, and deciding, you know what? Screw you. I can't have my dog. I love my dog. Who doesn't love dogs? Why can't they be in the vault? I need to know what you guys are doing. It's funny that that's what kind of puts him over the limit. I love dogs, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
He's like, that's where I draw the line.
That's where I draw the line.
Dog is man's best friend, and they it could be a sanity thing.
Keeps you not crazy.
Because pets give you serotonin, and if they want to have happy vault dwellers, which doesn't always happen in every vault, but I don't know.
I just know that in multiple occasions in Fallout 4, you do encounter cats inside of a vault, which is why I'm like, why they say no on dogs, but it seems like cats are fine.
More self-sustaining, I would say.
And if there's any mice in the vaults,
Which there probably
could
would
mice
be.
get in?
Well, I mean, if mice are getting into your vault, then you have a problem right there.
Yeah.
I mean, mice get everywhere, though. It's just that's the thing, is it's a ridiculous rule that they were told, and maybe it's just for the vault that they're getting to go into, right? Maybe there's other vaults that do have dogs. It's not a problem, right? Or other pets or whatever. But
And it's not a no to all pets either, because I think it was last episode in Overseer Benjamin's office, we see a fish
he's
tank.
got a fish.
And just normal pet fish, not any weird experimental fish.
Well, that we know. Maybe it started that way.
Yeah, as far as
They
we
were
know,
trying to take
but-
creatures and merge them with humans to make them radiation resistant, and that didn't go
Yeah.
well.
That's where the axolotl lived.
Yeah, they had pet axolotls for a second. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. But the main thing here is that he's decided that he does want to find out what Barb's working on, and does have the listening device, and is now kind of working undercover for Moldaver, or Williams, whatever her name is in the beginning. So it flashes back to the present, and he's actually sitting. It's kind of like he's been trekking for a while, because he's sitting at a campfire, and he's petting the dog, and he says, "I'm sorry, dog meat, but you ain't him." One, called the dog meat, so hell yeah.
Confirmed.
Pretty great. Confirmed is dog meat. Great callback to the games. I think every game, Fallout 3, is it called dog meat, or is it only called dog
Yes,
meat in Fallout
it
4?
is dog meat. It's dog meat in every game. And I have a fun little theory for y'all to think about just for a little bit. Because in the events of Fallout 1 and 2, dog meat disappears for a little bit, right? Because it said that dog meat, like, I think canonically dies at the end of, like, the first Fallout game, but
Uh-huh.
comes back. And there's a theory that dog meat's actually a super mutant, like a super mutant hybrid, which is why dog meat's been around for so long and could take such a beating.
Okay, well, maybe. Like, it's just like the most tenacious dog because it's got super mutant genes in it. But it looks like a normal dog. Like, there's no mutation on him. So,
Well, not
super
everything that
lucky?
is mutated is, a super mutant per se. Like, for example, 76, you can get mutations that make you jump higher, or, have unbreakable bones. That's banking on 76. You can get cybernetic augmentations in New Vegas. Like, there's possibilities that maybe the dogs have been experimented on, which is why dog meat pops up in every single game, looking the exact same.
Is dog meat in New Vegas, though?
You get Rex, which is a cybernetic dog that looks like Fallout 3's dog meat, just roboified.
No one's actually called dog meat, though, right? Like, none of the dogs.
In Fallout 1 and 2, it is dog meat. Fallout 3, it's dog meat. Fallout 4, it's dog meat.
So, just
New
not.
Vegas is the only one where it's Rex.
Yeah. Well, it's not just Rex, too.
I kind of like the theory.
Is dog meat really a name though, or is it just kind of like a nickname that
Give to
they call
dogs.
dogs?
What they call them.
Just some dog might.
Like how we call all dogs doggos.
Yeah,
Possibly.
that
yeah.
is dog meat's name.
Even Nick brings it up when you play it in Fallout 4.
Same with Mama Murphy.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe they just it's dog meat. Think about it. In the wasteland, dogs would be something you'd eat.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
how
just
many times do you
some dog
encounter
meat
other dogs that look like that?
that are normal, edible, and fine.
I mean, how many dogs did the Enclave have?
They had a bunch. Well, so
Yeah.
dogs out of everything probably have survived the best, besides humans, right? Because
And
you see
chickens.
and chickens.
Cockroaches.
They look totally
No,
normal.
cockroaches got mutated. I'm saying like didn't mutate as much as everything else. There are mutated dogs, but there is a lot of dogs that are just normal. Like in Fallout 4, you get the guy who breeds the dogs and like trades them to you and stuff. Like those are just normal dogs. It's kind of interesting. Like in the Fallout world, dogs survive better than anything else.
Dogs are pretty durable.
Durable dogs.
Well, probably one vault was allowed to have dogs. And they got out.
Yeah, there's a vault entirely made up of dogs. A vault with 1 million dogs and only one cat. Another vault with 1 million cats and only one dog.
Hear me out. Make a vault, call it Vault 365, and every single day of the year, somebody has a different birthday.
So you have a birth, so 365 people, and they all have to
And
have.
there's one birthday a day.
Interesting. So you're always celebrating somebody's birthday.
Yes.
How would you maintain
And
that?
so if somebody gets pregnant,
Just never take down the the decorations.
So at that point, you're just patiently waiting for people to die so you can get a break from all the birthday celebrations.
But then they'd have to have new kids to replace the old ones onto those birthdays. Would they just assign birthdays if they were close?
No, I'm pretty sure they'd probably have to, like, scientifically figure out when to have people,
Induce birth,
Yeah.
and they all time it out to when people need to get pregnant. Interesting theory. I wonder how that'd work with 365 because you couldn't maintain 365 unless like when someone's born you kill whoever's on that day.
You still, even if you like plan the exact day when to conceive, you still can't predict when the baby is exactly going to come because they can come 2 weeks early, 3 weeks early, days after. Like babies come in their own time. But I guess you could induce like labor.
They do something with science. I mean, they induce labor with the axolotl creatures out of the ladies in
Yeah.
Vault 4. So,
ooh,
but all right, best doggo, Ghoul and Doggo, and that's where that scene ends.
Ghoul loves dogs.
Ghoul loves dogs. It's like the only thing he loves besides drugs. Loves drugs. All right, and we're back with Thaddeus. He finally arrives at the radio station. Weird timing on this one. It must be like the next day or something because it felt like the ghoul was camping with dog meat, and then Thaddeus is immediately like it's daytime.
It's gotta be.
right?
And then there's like a quick little scene of showing like Max and Lucy walking along those same railroad tracks. And I think that's just to like establish that they're on his trail.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm assuming the radio tower's, jawing away. Like,
And it seems like Max and Lucy are maybe closer than the ghoul. Because if they are on the railroad ties, then that would make more sense, right? Because,
And the ghoul's just relying on his senses, and Lucy
Well,
has an actual tracker.
and now he's got the dog too. Yeah. So, like,
Yeah.
he should get there quick. So he's probably on his way. But we cut back to Thaddeus, right? He made it to the radio station. It's playing that fiddle music.
It just sounds awful.
Yeah.
It's so distorted.
Yeah, it's the fiddle music. And there's like a radio dude there. There's DJ Carl, and Thaddeus is sitting there on the curb, kind of like he's waiting for his ride. And he's like, "Hey, thanks for letting me call them and stuff. They should be here any minute. Like, thanks for letting me use your radio." And DJ Carl's like, "Yeah, no problem, man. It's totally fine." Thaddeus is like, some people they just don't like this music, huh? DJ's like, "Oh yeah, dude, people get super mad. The thing is, no one appreciates these are the original recordings, right?" This guy's kind of fanatic about his like fiddle stuff. And Thaddeus is like, "Oh, yeah." Kind of just, it's like this weird, awkward small talk that they have now.
Thaddeus is trying to be like extra nice to him too, because when he was listening on the radio earlier, DJ Carl was like, "And just a reminder, I don't take visitors at the station. A simple postcard will do." And he's like, "I don't know what this guy is gonna do if he like sees me walking up to his station,
Yeah.
so I better be nice to him."
Well, and that's when it like, so they're talking about the music, and he's like, "You can't get these warm sounds anymore. The bass, the treble, the mids." And Thaddeus is like, "Oh yeah, that." Like he kind of knows what the music is or whatever. And DJ Carl's like, "Here," and Thaddeus is like, "Yeah, I totally hear it. Like I know what you're talking about." He's like, "That's the mids, right?" And he's like, yeah. So they're just having this dumb conversation about the fiddling music.
Sucking up is what Thaddeus does best.
Exactly. Thaddeus is really good at sucking up, and he's like, "I like it a lot. Some people, they're just so ignorant of music. It's kind of sad, I would say." And DJ Carl's like, "Yeah, totally." Like he's like bonding with this dude. And that's when it pans out, and this is where you see all these booby traps. And Thaddeus is like, "Great job on these booby traps, by the way." Changes the subject. Really good. And this is where we see all these different booby traps, and there's like a giant bear trap, there's a giant mouse trap, and people impaled. Like, so there's a bunch of bodies and corpses around that are all caught in all of these traps. But they all look ridiculous because there's like, it's a giant bear trap. Like, it's massive. And same thing with the mouse trap. Like, they're just like, did he actually catch these guys? And he calls them critics. Did he actually catch these critics, or do you think that they like he found the bodies and like put them there to scare people off?
I think these are people.
I think he put the bodies there because the traps are so big. It's like you gotta be so dumb to step in the middle of that trap.
That's what,
And they're not hidden.
I thought these were critics. I thought they were people that were coming up complaining about his music choices.
Yeah.
They just didn't notice the traps.
Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't see him to be the one that go get people. I feel like people probably came to him.
And maybe he killed them a different way and then just put them in, or is it just kind of a wacky, ridiculous scene to be wacky?
No, I think
ridiculous
they're
Fallout?
probably wacky radiator.
Just
wacky.
wasteland. Oh my gosh, what's it called? Wacky wasteland,
The
wild
Yeah.
wasteland perk.
Yeah.
Where you
Yeah.
just discover weird stuff, and one of them is these giant, ridiculous traps around a radio because they don't like his music. It seems like something that would be in Fallout. It's perfect. But that's when DJ Carl says like, "Hey, is that your ride?" And Thaddeus is like, "What?" And he looks, and it's Max and Lucy, and they're approaching. They're just walking up to the tower. And Thaddeus is like, "Oh no!" DJ Carl's like, "Guess not. Okay." And Carl closes his door because he's like, obviously something's about to go down. Thaddeus actually draws his gun and fires at Lucy and Max, like, and we just see it from Thaddeus's perspective, and he just unloads the entire clip. And it flashes to Max and Lucy, and they're like kind of just frozen standing there, and they're like looking around. And he didn't hit them once. Like, none of the bullets he fired at them hit them. And Lucy and Max like kind of raise their hands and stuff, but like that means Thaddeus's like perception and agility have to be so bad.
Well, he says, he's like, "God, I suck without a scope."
Yeah, he's like suck without a scope. Kind of a funny thing. Misses every single one of his shots. And Lucy's like, "We just want the head." And Thaddeus hasn't met Lucy yet. And she's like, "Who are you?" And Lucy's like, "I'm the one who cut it off." Thaddeus is like, "Okay." And he's kind of like, he still doesn't trust him, right? And this is when he steps backwards and he triggers one of the tripwire traps, which opens a trunk that fires a crossbow, and it goes right through Thaddeus's neck. So we talked about Thaddeus dying in unglorious ways, and this is definitely one of them. But he doesn't die. Lucy and Max are kind of looking at him with concern, and Thaddeus like touches it and goes, "Why am I not dead?" He actually goes to grab it and pull it out, and Lucy's like, "No, don't do that." And he's like, "Well, I'm not gonna just leave it in." Like, it's like, yeah, that's true. That's logical, right? I'm not gonna just leave it in there. He pulls it out. We immediately see that after he pulls it out, the wound on his neck heals rapidly. It's kind of like scars over. And that's when Max says, "Thaddeus, I think you might be a ghoul." And Thaddeus is like, "Oh no, I should have never trusted that doctor that smelled like that."
Ugh.
Like, what do you smell like?
Terrible. He was sleeping with chickens. What do you mean what he smelled? He had to
I
smell.
don't think I want to know.
And he's probably never showered.
But yeah, so this confirms that the liquid that we thought was the guy's piss was actually the same ghoul liquid that the ghoul actually has been hitting to stay ghoulified, I guess. So it turns people into ghouls. And now Thaddeus has been turned into a ghoul.
My theory with the snake oil salesman is that somebody has hired him to try and sell snake oil, but it's actually ghoul serum, and to turn people into ghouls.
That would be pretty plausible. Like, you want to get this out in the wasteland. If you're running experiments or anything, you would probably give it to somebody to spread around.
Hey, I'm a doctor. It's like, oh, good enough for me.
What
Right?
if it's a modified version of FEV that doesn't turn people into super mutants, but ghouls instead?
Something, right? Like, that seems very plausible, where they just made some liquid that turns people into ghouls. And so here's another thought. TooRissky was actually, you told me about this. We talked about harvesting the organs and everything. Do you guys remember that? Why are they harvesting these organs from all these ghouls and stuff, and like holding on to ghouls? Like, wouldn't the organs not work? And I still can't answer that part. But TooRissky, you want to?
Yeah, it like this scenario with the organ trade and everything like that. They obtain humans by some transaction, and they take their organs, and then they give them ghoul serum to like reheal them and like reconstruct, and they put them in the freezers, and they're ghouls now, but because their like organs can reconstruct and regrow, they can then continue harvesting those, and then they've just like had some of those guys for longer, and so they've turned feral, and they don't want to just like let them go. But yeah, I still don't have an answer as to why they're harvesting, or like who's buying them, or what they're doing with the organs,
Or if they even
but
work, right? Like the
yeah.
first set, maybe, but the next sets are all just ghoul organs. So, like, do they sell it as meat? Do people eat them? Can they use them for something? Are they just turning more people into ghouls?
Could you use it like ghoul skin becomes kind of leathery? I wonder if you could repurpose it into like some sort of
Armor.
some sort of leather armor, or like a
Cool jerky.
Ass jerky?
ass jerky, or like a leather canteen or something like that.
What if that's where they get the serum from? Is the organs?
If they need the serum to make the serum.
Yeah, it's a vicious.
Mr. Chicken and the Egg over here.
That wouldn't be a far off throw.
No, it makes sense. So maybe they're just making more and manufacturing more? The government.
The only way they've like show ghouls made like a very tiny way. Now, like if you just extract it from like a ghoul, you can get like turn other people into ghouls.
I guess, yeah, and then it could just spread. But like, to what end?
Now you got ghoul disease.
Okay, I think that all of this is coming from Moldaver, and that she's creating ghouls in order to kind of create a bad guy, and so that she can unite people underneath her in order to like fall under her control.
Like a common enemy.
But are you saying like they're gonna use the ghouls as the bad guy, or like just because they're
Yeah.
like an abused group?
Yeah, because nobody likes ghouls.
Well, there's already a ton of history for ghouls because they had a whole city called Necropolis, and then a whole vault got ghoulified, and that's why they established their city. And then the super mutants started a war when the Master was around, and they basically attacked a bunch of the ghouls until they could they went to peace. Well, because the whole problem was with the FEV virus, you needed like perfect specimens to create the perfect super mutants. They were going to the vault where the ghouls came out of, and they were going there to get specimens, but when they got there, all of them were ghouls, so they weren't good specimens. So then there was a fight. So ghouls have been around since like the beginning,
Right.
you know.
But there's not a ton of
I
them.
don't know if I could see her creating a common enemy, but like there's so many enemies you could pick in the wasteland. Why make one?
Why make more?
Why are we not just fighting the Enclave? Why does it got to be other people?
Well, and they all seem to know about the Enclave. They all seem to know about the Brotherhood of Steel. You know, the factions are known. The NCR was known. So was Moldaver part of the NCR? Like it seems
Well, it's like trying to get everyone to look
That's
bigger.
what I said a while ago.
maybe you're right. We don't know. We got a lot of questions that need to be answered about it.
I just feel like she's way too like
Influential.
technical to be just a raider.
Yeah. No, she's
She
obviously got
has
something else
way
going
too
on.
much information and knowledge about things. She's seen things. She's been through things. No, she'd be almost perfect to be somebody, like one of the higher ups of the NCR back when they were around.
She's really smart.
Okay, let's jump back to Thaddeus because now he's a ghoul. Right when that all happens and he's like, they figure out he's a ghoul, of course we hear the vertibird. They look up and the vertibird kind of flies over the top and is going to land. DJ Carl's like, oh boy, which means he opened up his door again. He's kind of like still listening. And Max says it. He's like, the Brotherhood. And Thaddeus is like, oh no, no. Because now he's a ghoul. And the Brotherhood basically just kills anybody. And he says, he's like, they'll kill me if they find out that I'm a ghoul. And Lucy's like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, the Brotherhood of the good guys, right? And that's when Thaddeus and Max, this is one of the best scenes too, because Thaddeus and Max look at each other, and Thaddeus goes, it's a complicated organization. Like, they're the good guys, right? Maybe not all the time. But Max comes up with a quick solution here, and he says, Thaddeus, give me the head. Thaddeus is like, what? He's like, listen, I'll slow him down. You get out of here. And Thaddeus is surprised because, like, they were fighting before. He just tried to kill him, and Max is being nice to him. Max is like, give me the head, and you can run. Thaddeus is like, well, sorry about all the things I was mean for. Okay, bye. And just takes off running after he gives him the head. So Thaddeus runs off. Max is like, you can see he's kind of thinking here. And he looks at the head, and he looks around, and he finds one of the bodies, and he rips off the head from a nearby trap. And Lucy's like, what are you doing? He takes that other head and he just smashes it and smashes it and smashes it and smashes it till you can't recognize what the face is. And he says, if they want a head, I'll give them a head. And Max hands Wilzig's head back to Lucy. So he has the thing that he needs to give to the Brotherhood to ensure that he'll be okay. And instead, he gives it to Lucy. And he says, find your dad, go home. That's what I want for you. And Lucy's like, well, hold on. You're supposed to come with me. Like, and Max is like, they're never going to stop looking for this artifact. Lucy's like, I'm not leaving. I'm not going to leave you. And Max says, trust me. And they stare at each other for a minute. And Max leans in and Lucy leans in. And then they kiss. And it plays the Your Everything music. And like Carl opens up his door to view it. And he's smiling because he's looking at him kissing. And it's kind of this just moment. It's another nice moment for them. And they're both holding the head under their arm. And while they're kissing, the heads are like kissing too, even though one of them's face is smashed in. It's just kind of this weird, like, only Fallout can do this, right? Where it's just so wacky, explosion, like dead things and like ridiculousness and like the guys watching.
It's so wacky, it just works.
And it's so dumb and like the kissing, but it's like the one romantic spot and they finally kiss. And it kind of gives them their moment, like spins around him and it's like, you're my world, the song I sing, right? So they're in love. It's romantic. They part their kiss, right, reluctantly, and Lucy's like, I'll wait for you in Vault 33, find me, and Max is like, I will. Lucy runs off with Wilzig's head. Both of them are very happy, right? They just kiss, their smile, but like they gotta separate. But Max says he promises to find her, and that's the plan. They're gonna rendezvous at Vault 33. And so he watches her leave, and then immediately his smile drops and he becomes super serious as the vertibird gets closer. And we see Max walk off to the vertibird. And that's how that scene ends.
I don't think that's going to end well for Max. Just because.
No?
I mean, I guess it depends on why the Brotherhood wants the head or wants the person. Because it seems like everybody else wants maybe the chip that's in the head.
Yeah, but they don't, Maximus doesn't know about the chip. But it seems like the probably higher up Brotherhood do.
Yeah, so he probably won't get in trouble for the head, but he'll get in trouble for leaving Knight Titus, and the only thing that was going to excuse that is if he brought the head back. I just don't see this working out well.
And like, what's his excuse gonna be? Like, yeah, I thought it was the one.
He's pretty much gambling that they're going to be dumb enough where it's like, man, I don't know. I thought I got the right.
Well, you tried your best.
Because we know with the Brotherhood, failure is like not an option.
It's really not. So this is what's weird, right? They left. Maximus and Titus left. Titus dies. Maximus says he's Titus and says that Maximus is dead. They send him a squire. The squire's with him, and they separate. And now it's only Maximus going back, who they think is dead. Knight Titus isn't there. The other squire they sent isn't there. And he's just approaching him with the head. He's going to have so much explaining to do. And we've seen how terrible at explaining he is from before this. I don't know. This is not going to go well for Maximus at all.
It doesn't seem like they're gonna just like let him leave afterwards because he's like, oh yeah, I had these plans to meet up with a girl in a vault. Like, yeah, she's really
Right?
nice.
Like, I'll see you guys later.
Like, yeah.
What? I don't see this ending well for Maximus. I'm with you, Snicker. I don't think this is going to go well, but we'll have to find out. They'll probably be like, well, you need to lead us to the person that does have the head or something. You know what I mean? Maybe they'll interrogate him. Maybe they'll do something. I don't know.
They're going to break him.
Maybe they'll hand it off to another
Knight?
knight.
Right? Like, he's still a squire, technically. They're not going to just promote him. Where's the armor? They got to go get the armor. So maybe they will go.
They're not going
mess
to
up Vault
trust
4.
him with anything after that.
Yeah. And we'll have to see what happens. Running into the final stretch of the episode, we are back in Vault 33. And we're gathering all the people that are moving over to Vault 32. And Betty's at the front of it. And she's making a speech. And she's like, we say goodbye to everybody that's leaving us for Vault 32. Each of you has been chosen for your agreeability, your stick-to-itiveness, and all those other qualities that make for a successful pioneer. And she's just kind of going on. And Woody's in the crowd. And he's kind of sitting there and he's getting jittery. And he's like, I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going. And he walks out, like, through all the people to Vault Tech security.
guards.
Yeah, they step
Yeah.
in front of him. And he's like, excuse me, I'd like to go, please. Nope, I don't live there. I live here. Everybody's kind of watching him. And Betty's, like, kind of frowning at him. Realizing that the guards aren't going to move, Woody goes, sorry, that was weird. Sorry, I'm fine. Proceed. Don't worry about it. Gets back in the line. Almost as a breakdown. Betty's just like, thank you. And, of course, every vault... Like, she just continues like nothing happened.
That kind of throws the security guard. That's when I kind of first realized what you were talking about earlier, which was, the security guards, we don't really see them a lot earlier on, but if they are in on it, that's a pretty big deal, not letting him leave.
Right? A lot of control there. And, like, why not give them the choice? Like, they just kind of made the decision and said, you're going here. And I think it's fine, right? I mean, for 31, it's fine. But you're right. Maybe the guards are in on it. Maybe all the guards are from 31, too. We don't know. But they're upholding, and there's obviously seems to be a very strict hierarchy here that we didn't see as much before. She's like, okay, well, the new vault is going to need an overseer. Conferred with the High Council from Vault 31. And we are proud to announce...
I didn't get that impression that she like conferred with the High Council in Vault 31. I thought she was just talking about like
Who else is the High Council?
Reg and Woody.
But she would have talked...
Like they were a council.
But they definitely were not the guys that she talked to. Because if she talked to them, one, she didn't tell Woody that he was going, and he's freaking out about it. I wouldn't consult with him. And then Reg was both of them are kind of nobodies. I don't think she consulted with them. I think there's somebody else she's implying. Like, maybe we don't know.
Maybe the High Council is like a council made up of all the Vault's overseers and their counselors.
Yeah, so maybe she's just saying High Council. Like, we don't know who's the High Council. If it is that council, that seems kind of weird because both the people that she's talking to ran against her and were terrible, and I wouldn't take any of their advice.
I think it was for the crowds effect.
Yes, I
Like-
think Nick's right.
Yeah.
Could be the crowd effect, yeah. But we're proud to announce the next interim Vault Overseer of Vault 32, Stephanie Harper. Bum, bum, bum. Chet's eye patch girlfriend.
Wife?
And she like smiles and like
Oh, she's pumped.
felt like she was expecting it.
Yeah, no, it definitely felt like she was expecting it, and she was super pumped. She smiled. She's happy. Everybody's like, congratulations, yada, yada, yada.
Chet and Norm like share a look and they're like, oh, this just further confirms our
The Vault
theories.
31 thing, right? And Norm's kind of being
Yeah.
like, yo, Chet, right? Like, obviously some problems. And Betty's like, well, our friends are going to become namers. Good luck, Vault 32ers. Hit it. And then they play the From the First Hello to the Last Goodbye song, which is great as the Vault 32ers are picking up all their boxes and their belongings and stuff. And they head out of the vault and they're going into a tunnel leading into darkness, which is kind of symbolic, honestly. It seems like that tunnel to 32 is always dark.
It's the light fading out of life, the joy being
Yeah.
destroyed as they go into Vault 32.
Honestly, they got a pretty good opportunity.
I think it also represents the like the mystery and the uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. And it's a hole. It's another hole you're going down into.
Yeah.
Down the rabbit hole.
But Davey, our classic mustache Davey, he's pumped. He's excited. He's first through the door. Gets out of there. And Woody and Reg hug each other. And like Woody doesn't want to let go, but Reg is like, you gotta go. Chet just glances at Norm. They kind of just look anxious back and forth. Norm really doesn't say anything. Steph's smiling, of course. She's pumped. All of a sudden, it feels like Norm's got a bee under his bonnet because he just kind of turns around and hurries away towards the overseer's office is actually where he ends up going. And he's kind of looking suspicious. He's looking over his shoulder because if Betty's here seeing those people off, then no one's in her office. So he immediately gets behind the computer. He hacks the computer, which is exactly like the game. It's got all the sounds. It's got all the things. Looks really good. What do you guys think of the hacking game? Because honestly, I like the hacking game once I figured out how to do it.
It looks a lot like how it should.
But in general, I'm saying, like, what do you guys think of the hacking, lockpicking as a game mechanic?
It's there.
I think it's cool. Like I've never figured out how to do it. I haven't played it enough, but I don't know. It feels cool like you're actually hacking something.
Right? Like, it's not bad for what it is. I really don't have anything else to compare it.
It looks cooler than like other lock picking. Makes me think of like Starfield. I know it's like computer versus locks, but like
So I'll see if I can explain it.
Any hacking to compare to would be GTA, where that's pretty much connect chip dot here to other chip dot to connect the lines. But
Like point to point.
yeah,
So how you do the hacking game? Because I actually like a long time ago I looked it up because I wanted to know. Because I was just guessing basically 3 times and then exiting and coming back in and guessing 3 times so I got it right. So the way it works is you actually go through line by line. And if there's a certain, like if you're going through lines and it's not an individual character and it's like this whole string of characters is one thing, that's a button you can click. And if you click on that, it removes either the duds or it resets your guesses. So there's ones that are like bracket to bracket. There's ones that are like caret to caret. And you just go through and you basically select all those. So the best optimal way to do it is you guess 3 times, then you go through and do that. So you reset your guesses and you remove all the duds. And also while you're doing that, as you guess, it tells you, it says 3 of the characters in this word are correct and they're in the right place. So you got to look at the other words and you got to compare those words to the one that you just guessed and see which ones might fit it. And that's how you do the hacking for it. So it's kind of just
hate
different.
that though, because there are times where you'll guess something that's not even related. You could have like 3 out of 5 and guess something that's completely random, and that'll be your password. And it's like, huh?
Yeah, once it gets harder.
it's like an anagram. You have to like figure out which letters are in that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in the same order.
It does need to be in the same exact order. So if you're doing it and it's like the words cat, right? And it says there's one letter in here that's good. It could be the C, it could be the A or the T. So the next word you guess maybe is bet. And it's like, nope, 0 out of 10. It wasn't the T. You're like, okay, then maybe it was the A. And then you guess bam. And it's like, well, yep, it was the A. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, but if it's like 2 letters and it's like B E, I'm like looking at Betty. If it's B E, could it be in another word and it would
They
be
have to be in the same spot.
E something other letters?
No,
E,
they have to be in
and
the
then
same
B.
spot.
Okay.
Yeah. So you got to look for the letters that are in the same spot in the other words. That's how it helps you narrow it down. Because if it was just random, that would really suck.
Okay.
But yeah. So anyway, that was just the hacking thing. I like the hacking.
It's cool.
I love the clicking sounds, if I'm being honest. Norm hacks the computer. And then it says, what do you want to do today, Overseer? And he says, I want to send a message to Overseer 31. The Vault Boy says, okay, cool. Loads some messaging. And he types, and we kind of see the typing as it happens. And he types out, hello. And then Overseer 31 says, Betty, how are you? Overseer 33 says, I need to return to 31. And then Overseer 31 says, are you compromised? And Overseer 33 says, mission not go-. Well, this is Norm, right? Overseer 33 says, mission not going as planned. It like pauses for a second, and then it goes, I see. Come to 31 immediately. Norm has now found out that something is going on. 31 just asked, are you compromised? Compromised for what? What does that mean? What mission? Very strange. Norm basically is now confirmed 31 is super suspicious and something's going on and has an invitation now to go to Vault 31.
The door's open.
You would think that the overseer office would be under surveillance
Right?
if 31 was overseeing everything.
Thing though, in the wasteland, it's like so 50-50 because like either surveillance cameras don't exist or they do in the form of like some weird way.
Yeah.
Well, they do in this universe because in the Super Duper Mart, where Huey and Squirrel are sitting, they have like a little TV there. There's a surveillance camera of where that little callback box was just outside, and the ghoul is passed out. So that is a surveillance camera. So it's possible.
Yeah, it's just, I think to Banana's point, it's just very inconsistent. Because you're like, are they listening to everything or are they doing nothing? And if it was my theory from before where words have meaning, then they would be listening to everything. But maybe they don't have it bugged in the overseer's office. Maybe that's the only safe place. Maybe there's a code word that we missed here that they didn't type in case she is compromised. And then, you know, the overseer from 31 could be laying a trap for Norm. He may know it's not. Because then, right after this conversation, Norm basically gets out of the chair and runs all the way to the entrance leading to Vault 31. And he goes up to the door and it's closed. But then he just yells out and says, hello, hello, which is obviously like, it's not Betty, right? And you think they'd have a camera.
Like she'd know what to do and not just call out, hello.
Right? That's what I'm saying. It's kind of suspicious that they're just kind of letting him walk in here. And I'm thinking maybe they're trapping him because the door does open and Norm's kind of nervous, but he's kind of looking around. He says, screw it. And he goes through the tunnel. The door actually shuts behind him. And, you know, 31's kind of suspicious. They're doing some good camera angles here that make you kind of be like, what's going on? It's dark. The lights aren't as well lit in there and everything. And he's still calling out hello. He's working farther and farther into the vault. And we start hearing some mechanical whirring and clanking. It almost sounds like a Mr. Handy, like broken on the ground or something. Or maybe
That's what I was thinking.
someone hurt or something. I don't know.
But it
But
sounds like the construction areas normally in like with the
yeah,
fallout.
something, right? And as he's moving closer and closer, it's like he's almost going to see what the thing is. It's like behind a box. We see Norm's face and he kind of looks disturbed and confused. And that's it. And it ends with the episode. So what do we think he saw?
Thinking some sort of robot because it was like mechanical whirring and it didn't sound like a machine running. It sounded like a like a robot.
Maybe they're like sentry bots or not robo brains.
Yeah.
He looks down at the ground, so it's got to be like either fallen over or just a smaller robot or something.
I really hope it's a robo brain. I hope that there's robo brains in Vault 31 and that they still have humans, but like the original people in charge are still doing stuff.
Because I'm thinking back to like in Fallout 3, some of the vaults like do have robots just like helping out. Like there is a vault, I think it's the one that has the Tranquility Loungers with everyone in there.
You're thinking of the one on Far Harbor where you go down and there's a bunch of robo brains and there are a bunch of like rich people and they got robo brained and then they're like,
well, there's that one too,
there's
but
actors
there's like
and painters and a scientist or something.
Wait, so what is a robo-brain?
a robo brain's pretty much like it's like almost like a military. They were like
Not even military. It's just a robot that looks kind of like a tube and it's got wiggly arms and then it's on treads. But the top thing has an eye sometimes and then just it's like a brain in a tank. So it's basically like they took somebody's brain and put it in a robot.
yeah. But usually for the most part it's like someone who's like with the brains that you have interacted with. Most of them tend to be of a intelligent or a rich person. Some of them do have like dumb ones, but most of them are like
Those are cool.
a smart brain that controls them.
I don't know what it's called. I just remember it from seeing you guys playing through it. But there's a robot that has like TV screens on it, and it's like a face and like
Oh, you're talking about the
but
big
they're like
empty.
individual. Yeah, like the individual eyes and mouths are like kind of moving and like
Yeah, those guys are that's a different group. So that's a group of scientists that went off and were doing a bunch of tests in the crater, and like that's what they did to themselves to stay alive past the bombs falling and everything. So those are just
okay.
they're kind of robo brains because they do have the same kind of build, but they don't have the treads. The robo brain we're talking about is a little bit more common. So maybe it will be like the ones from the Big Empty. That could be possible. But those guys all go insane, so it doesn't really work well.
What if Mr. House had like his mentality put into a computer, right?
Yeah. So Mr. House lays down in like a bed that's hooked up to a bunch of computers, keeping his body alive so that his brain can work through the computer.
I don't know. But wild thought here. Like Vault 4 was governed entirely by scientists. What if like Vault 31 is governed by robots?
Maybe something, right?
I don't know.
I mean, it's.
Just a wild idea.
I mean, the only reason we're thinking robot so hard is because of all the noises they were making, the clanking. It definitely sounded like a robot, but all right, that is episode 7, and a lot of stuff happened, a lot of good scenes, a lot of funny parts, a lot of character building. We're finding more about Vault Tech before the bombs fell. We're following the ghoul. Everybody's still tracking. We're kind of back on our, separate stories going in the same direction, but meeting up kind of deal. We're back on that. Thaddeus is now a ghoul. So let's go into final ratings for the Fallout episode 7, The Radio. And we'll go ahead and start with Banana. What is your rating of episode 7?
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. All right. So what could have made it a 10 out of 10? What were we missing?
I had it, but I can't remember.
9 out of 10 because it's a 9 out of 10. All right, Snicker, what's your rating of Fallout episode 7?
I will also go with a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. You guys staying with the crowd this time. What makes it a 9 out of 10 and not a 10 out of 10?
I didn't like Thaddeus being mean to the dog. Yeah. It was the episode had a lot of really good scenes, interactions with like a lot of variety. I liked the kind of the romance happening between Maximus and Lucy. I liked the funny scene between Thaddeus and the doctor, and I liked the first scene with the ghoul and the NCR ranger and his son. All that had good dialogue and like just a good chemistry going on. I didn't like being mean to the dog.
Okay. 9 out of 10 for the animal abuse. And Thaddeus is no longer liked by Snickerer. Let's go ahead and ask TooRissky. What was your rating for episode 7?
Give this one a 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Solid episode.
Doesn't mind the dog abuse.
No, I mind, definitely. But that doesn't bring it down a point for me. That's just kind of true to Thaddeus's character. We know he can be
It's a
kind
little
of a
petty, let's be
we
honest.
know he can be a bully.
What?
But solid episode. I love like all the flashbacks, all the information. Dialogue is awesome. There's good variety of like all the different characters.
We see all the
and
characters.
yeah. And then we get to see like somebody new. Like it's second to last episode and they're still introducing new factions like the NCR Rangers.
Still so many questions.
Right. And then the romance, of course, is awesome and special effects are great. It's a good, well-rounded episode. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, perfect. 10 out of 10. I don't think we've given a couple 10 out of 10s, right? A couple of them.
I think we're afraid to just like not give them
I just
like
love
every episode
everything.
a 10 out of 10.
We gotta come up with something. We're gonna be somewhat critical, right? But
It's so well done, honestly.
all right, Dab Ninja, what is your rating of episode 7?
Oh, I think I'll go with a 9 as well.
9 out of 10. And what would have made it a 10 out of 10? Like, what was missing?
You know, I just don't think this was the episode to make it a perfect 10 out of 10. Like, it's really, really good. It's just, it ain't a perfect score.
Okay, another 9 out of 10 because it's just a 9 out of 10, which leaves it with me and my rating of it, which I am also going to say it's a 9 out of 10. So we're pretty on par here. TooRissky really loved it. We all kind of loved it. For me, it's the continuity stuff. I didn't mind the dog thing so much. Like, it made sense for the character. For me, it was definitely the continuity of time and how they how it's nighttime for the ghoul, but then all of a sudden it's daytime for them. The tracking is kind of like, it's shown, but It feels like they almost rushed it, and I get that. They probably cut scenes, and you got to think about today's audience and how long they have an attention span. So you're like switching scenes quicker, you're cutting things out. It's like, well, we don't need to see so much trekking because there's a ton of trekking, right? They're just walking all over California, going places and stuff. So
They're very much no fluff.
exactly. So for me, I kind of like the fluff sometimes. It makes a little bit more sense for me. So maybe that's just me being greedy and I want more, which I do. I'm excited for the finale, which is going to be our next episode here. But I think it's a 9 out of 10 too. I think overall that makes it what, a 9.2 or some crap, something like
Yeah,
that.
9.2.
Pretty close to perfect episode. Pretty great. Loved it a lot. Loved the scenes. Didn't like looking at the foot. Really didn't like looking at the foot.
It was nasty.
It was gross, but everything else was great. I like Thaddeus turning into a ghoul. I like the ghouls doing his tracking. I like the NCR Rangers at the beginning. I like how that turned out. I liked Lucy and Maximus's romance, like was mentioned. Good stuff and good resolution to the Vault 4 stuff. You know, it felt wacky, but it felt right. A lot of wacky stuff. Wacky Wild Wasteland is in this show, and I love it because you can't play the game without it. So thank you guys so much for coming. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ding the bell. We will be back at it again with the final episode of the series of season 1. The Fallout series is pretty great. The radio, solid leading up to the climax.
On Amazon Prime, they have a bunch of different like special features and then like character bios too. Tons of different stuff on their show site. So I think it would be cool if we watched those on our own time and then we could kind of like talk about exciting points that we saw within those special features and stuff like that.
Or even we could do some type of live reaction or something like that. I don't know. We could watch it together or something like that. But we can figure that out later. That'll be good. But thanks again for coming. As always, become the best you can be. Become a Wastelander.
Do it.
Believe it. 16 times. What
Done.
do you
What do
get?
you get?
Another day
Another
older
one.
and deeper in debt.
But a poor man's made out of muscle and blood.
Muscle and blood, singing bone. What do you get? Another one. Deep in debt.